Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Fantasy and Frames pregame show. Today, I'm your host, Jorge Edwards, and the family is not here. Either they are just, you know what? I say that, and then the person, the family member from here from Fantasy and Frames, that is the furthest away geographically from all of us, has arrived. This is Jonathan Klanowski. Jonathan, how are you doing today, man? Oh, can't hear you, but we'll try and figure that out as we. Oh, he says, hold on. Yep. So, folks, it is great being with you here. We're about to get ready for the rest of week 3 of the fantasy football season. I see you, everybody, in the YouTube chat and on Facebook. We will get to your questions, I promise. But like we do every week, folks, we're going to break things down. We're going to give you some news and notes. Going to give you some discussions about our flex options. We're going to talk about the different games that have big implications for you, especially all you 0-2 teams out there. Believe me, I get it. But we'll find a way to help you get some redemption from the past couple weeks and lead you to victory. So with that, let's get into some news and notes. Now, of course, I am biased when giving this information. So I'm going to give this information first. Let's talk about the Washington Commanders. I don't know if this gave it away at all. No Jaden Daniels this week, knee injury, sprained knee. We got Marcus Mariota starting last year, and Marcus Mariota started the game, or he came in against the Cowboys. He led the team to victory here. He had a connection with Terry McLaurin. Terry McLaurin is yet to really take off this year. For all you Terry McLaurin managers out there, you have to ask yourselves, what were my expectations of him coming into the season? He missed the entire offseason. He rolls into camp like a week before the season starts. Like, you kind of saw this coming, right? You kind of figured it was going to take a few weeks for him to get acclimated. So I wouldn't hit the panic button just yet on Terry McLaurin. Is he a must start here? I don't know if I would say you may not have better options, to be honest with you. Now, that being the case, me personally, if I have a wide receiver who has maybe a better matchup this week, I may think about going forward until you see some productivity and consistency from Terry McLaurin going in his direction. But I can totally understand if you don't have the better option there, or you don't have a wide receiver on your bench that has the matchup. For example, I'll give you, this is maybe boldish take. If Troy Franklin is on your waiver wire, or you're able to pick up Troy Franklin, I would trust the connection that he and Bo Nix have had over the course of the season, especially with Troy Franklin, coming on the scene last week versus Indy and really just putting it up, hit his coming out party. And I think that's not a fluke. I think you're going to see more of that going forward. So let's get some questions in the chat here already. Tootsie Pop 6, welcome to the Fantasy and Frames pregame show. She says, good morning. Good morning to you. Would you start Alex Singleton or Ivan Pace, then Tucker Kraft or Jake Ferguson? So I'm glad you brought that up, because I was looking here at the NFL's injury report here, and talking about Tucker Kraft, he did have that late in the week injury. Trying to pull it up right here because I want to see what his actual status is for this game. Okay, you get the Green Bay knee injury all week. Did not participate in the last practice of the week. Questionable, So you may find out by default that he is not available for you going forward for today's game, or Jake Ferguson. Jake Ferguson, we saw last week what his upside is here in this matchup. The secondary for the Bears took a hit. Kyler Gordon is going to miss a lot of time, if not. I can't recall if it was a season-ending injury or just he's going to be out on IR just for a few weeks. Either way, that secondary is not the same without him. So I would feel very confident in starting Jake Ferguson in this matchup. As far as your IDP question, so here's the situation with Ivan Pace. Let me talk about Ivan Pace. I'm a big fan of Ivan Pace. He came out of the University of Cincinnati as an undrafted free agent, goes to Minnesota, earns his way on the team. And when given, the playing time, he played very well, although he was rarely used in third down situations. Now, last week he had an increase in defensive snap share. So you're like, I like that. I like players who are on the field a lot more. That kind of gives them an opportunity to compile stats. But we look at, what do the Minnesota Vikings tend to do on defense? What's their bread and butter? The bread and butter is rolling 3 safeties on the field at all times. The only problem is, is that Harrison Smith has been out. You have, linebacker Andrew Van Ginkel, who technically he's more of a edge rusher than he is an actual, off-ball linebacker. That being the case, some of his whole roles and responsibilities have migrated to the other linebackers on the team, and as a result, that's why you saw Ivan Pace's snaps percentage go up last week. That being the case, he's still not utilized a lot on third down, so I will always go with Alex Singleton. I get it. Singleton is, not exactly taking off this year. Remember, he is coming back from an injury, torn ACL last year. That being the case, no Dre Greenlaw. He's on IR for 4 weeks. Kind of saw that coming in the preseason. Justin Strand, he's playing, a decent good amount of snaps, but I will always go Alex Singleton because he always has that tackle upside there. So, Rachel, hopefully that answers your questions. And good luck in your matchups today. Jonathan, are you back?
So?
Yes, you are. Welcome. How are things across the pond, sir?
Good now that my microphone's working. Yeah, it's a beautifully sunny day here in Scotland, which is something to always sort of appreciate. It doesn't happen as often as we'd like in Scotland. So yes,
I can
appreciating it.
understand that.
You have also very kindly taken me away from helping paint our flat. So I also appreciate that.
You know what? Whatever I can do to help out, you know that. I got Jeremy Noble in the chat. Good morning, Fantasy and Frames. Good morning to you, Jeremy. NRU, we see you. Let's get to your question next. Jonathan, why don't you take this one for the folks here for NRU? He has a tight end question. Does he roll with Tyler Warren and the success he's had in Indianapolis, or does he go with TJ Hawkinson, hoping that he can turn things around this week?
For me, this is Tyler Warren. I don't. If he's out there, then I'm playing him. I mean, 2 reasons. Firstly, Tyler Warren has been so clearly heavily utilized really early on, scheming touches up for him. And the other, I mean, with TJ Hawkinson, even with Jordan Addison on the sidelines, he's still not seeing the work that we kind of hoped coming into the season. I don't really see a reason why just because Carson Wentz is back there that's going to kind of change at all. So if Warren's out there, then I'm sticking with him.
All right. NRU, thank you very much for the question. Drop in more of your questions, folks, whenever you have them. We'll get to Jeremy Noble's question in a second. I promise you, Jeremy. Jonathan, you put out a weekly article series here at Fantasy and Frames called Fantasy Football Trends of the Week, where you go back from the previous week and you look at like all the different metrics that really stand out to you, all the data that stands out to you, and you kind of like are like, okay, this is kind of potentially predictive of what's happening going forward. And one of the players you were talking about is Ashton Jeanty, and so reports came out of Las Vegas this week that Pete Carroll is like, yeah, we got to get him more touches. You had Ashton Jeanty come out the middle of the week saying, if you're going to draft me, essentially he's saying, if you're going to draft me in the first, top 10 picks, use me more. Which some people are like, should a rookie be saying that? To which I'm always cautious about, like, don't complain, but especially as a rookie. But that being the case, he's not wrong. I mean, if you're going to invest at what was he, number 5 overall? If you're going to invest that draft pick in him, they should play him more. And can you maybe talk on or speak on, why exactly that is and what his usage has been so far this year?
Yeah, I think like it's been such a fascinating conversation over the past 2 weeks about kind of rookie running backs. Obviously not just Jeanty, but kind of there's like 4 or 5 that have kind of disappointed us based on kind of what we thought after the draft and then kind of coming into the summer. For me, I realize we want results at the start of the season, but I think we all just need to relax and have a bit of patience. They're high quality players. We saw that in college, and I think with rookies, it's not always just going to be like a steady straight line. And obviously, we've had plenty of success over the last few years, but I think what we need to be looking at is kind of looking into the numbers of what the coaching staff thinks about them. So for someone like Jeanty, who does he have behind him? It's Zamir White and Dylan Laube. Zamir White's had a handful of rushing attempts. I don't think Dylan Lowby has had any so far. So it's clear that they are going to keep giving the ball to Genty. He's had something like 89% of the running back rush attempts. I think the area that I'd be most interested to see whether these comments translate is in the passing game work. Are they going to start scheming up some touches to get him into space through the passing game? Because that will obviously help his fancy production, even more so through sort of PPR points. But I think in general we all need to maybe just have a little bit of patience. That doesn't mean certainly don't look to sort of trade these guys away immediately. I mean, obviously with someone like Genty, you probably can't bench him. I also probably wouldn't. Someone like Henderson, is maybe someone that you can maybe look to bench, but I think they're certainly not players that I'm looking to shift off my team anytime soon. Actually, possibly the opposite, with the hope of like the second half of the season, seeing them sort of once they're more acclimated into the league, kind of hopefully seeing sort of better production once they got their feet under the table a little bit.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense right there. Let's get into Jeremy's question here. He says, start Danny Dimes at 1 p.m. or hold out hope for Brock Purdy playing at 4. So here's the thing. Like, and I know we have like a 1 week sample size and it's early in the season, so it's kind of hard to, at this point in the year, and anybody else who tells you otherwise elsewhere, they don't know. We again, small sample size, all down data, but based off of last week's data, Mac Jones looked pretty damn good. So, if you have Mac Jones on your bench, like I wouldn't be worried if you were originally the Purdy manager and you put him in a IR spot. That being the case, both defenses have been kind of stingy in fantasy points per game to the quarterback position, referring to Tennessee going against the Colts. So I always will side with the quarterback that'll give me the rushing upside, and that's more Daniel Jones here in the situation versus a quarterback that may or may not be playing at 4 p.m. And if I don't have Mac Jones on my bench to kind of supplement or supplant Brock Purdy, then you're kind of screwed at the quarterback position going forward. Would you agree or disagree with that, Jonathan?
Yeah, it's so interesting this early in the season where it's like, how many weeks does something need to happen before it's a trend rather than just a series of outliers? Because like obviously the first week with Daniel Jones, you were like, oh, it's Miami, so we can kind of maybe put that to the side, and then he has a really good game last week as well. So I'm fairly happy to start Daniel Jones this week, particularly with the uncertainty around Brock Purdy. I think Dimes has been good. Jones has been good enough to kind of like to trust is maybe too strong a word, but like just kind of be happy enough that he's in the starting lineup.
Not to mention, per PFF, the Titans have the 10th worst pass rush unit in the NFL. So that, if anything, dare I say, Daniel Jones is going to drop back in that pocket and potentially throw some dimes, which I was looking at his metrics last year. So a few years ago for the Giants, he was like in the top 3 quarterbacks in the NFL graded on deep ball passes of 20 yards or more. He's number 6 in the NFL this year on passes of 10 to 19 yards or more. So, again, going back to the Tyler Warren question earlier, even the Michael Pittman managers out there, like this is a good situation. Now, the running game here could be challenging for Jonathan Taylor, but you're not benching Jonathan Taylor. You don't have probably a better option, Jonathan Taylor. And Jonathan Taylor can go all Jonathan Taylor on you. So I wouldn't be concerned here for any of the Colts players if I had to say here. You were about to say something or no?
No, I was just going to say they have, I think, a better system than we probably gave them credit for, like before the start of the season. Like Steichen's a good play caller. Like we've seen that from previous coaching positions that he's got. It might just have been that Anthony Richardson was just obviously not the player that we thought he was, and so Downs is a really good player. Warren's clearly a really good player. And these pieces kind of fit fairly well together with Alec Pierce and Pittman, the bigger guys on the outside. So it is a good system for Jones.
All right, let's get into our next question here. Good morning, KJ Frederick. Hurting at running back. Better running backs are Trevion Henderson, Rashard White, Tyler Algier, or one of a very popular guy off the waiver wire this past week, Bashal Tootin out of Jacksonville. In full PPR, he's starting Jordan Mason as his RB1 this week. That would probably be a wise decision. So good job there. But if you had to pick, Jonathan, and then I'll go after you, which running back you're excited for, who would you go for?
This is really tough. But yeah, definitely Jordan Mason. I'm really excited about him today. For me, it's between Henderson and I think it's between Henderson and Algier for me. Algier, I do like Tootin as well though. Sorry, I'm really not helping. Um, I
I
I
think what
do
I
actually like Tyler Algier today because I mean it's kind of game script dependent, but I can see a situation where Atlanta are up and just just kind of run the ball, and he's actually been seeing a good amount of touches. Even sort of with Bijan Robinson there, so I think like game script could really help him there. Henderson, I really like, but I kind of have fears after Ramondre Stevenson's performance last week that they might just give him a kind of full workload again. Um, yeah,
So, going to your Algier pick, the Panthers are eighth in the NFL in rushing yards allowed, allowing 5.2 yards per carry, which is number sixth in the NFL in rushing average allowed. So, obviously, this screams, Bijan is going to have a really good day this week. But to your point, I like the idea that Tyler Algier could get, mop up duty or whatever the football equivalent is there and have some success. The real question for me, and that's, is Trevion Henderson, and you mentioned Ramondre Stevenson's performance last week, but, going against, the matchup this week, I am curious whether or not, the Steelers offense is able to really light it up against New England. I'm pretty a big fan of what New England has done on the defensive side of the ball, getting younger in the secondary, getting these established pass rushers like Harold Landry up front. That being the case, going back to the youth in the secondary, I wonder if this is a situation where Rodgers is like, oh, I want to take advantage of this all day. You being a Packers fan, you've seen that plenty of times there in Green Bay. And so if that's the situation, which I kind of anticipate being the situation, I think the Patriots are going to be in catch-up mode. And I think that leans more to Trevion Henderson's skill set jumping out there than Ramondre. So I'm going to go Hendo this week. Jonathan's going to go Algier. So, but definitely Jordan Mason, your RB1. KJ, love it. Got Albert in the chat. What's going on, Albert? Good morning, everyone. Good morning to you. Let's go here to our next question. Mike Duke, thank you for keeping the love alive for standard non-PPR leagues. I am one of those people who will always be pro that because I am not somebody who likes PPR or half PPR because I don't believe in rewarding points on negative plays. That's just me, but that's neither here nor there. And wait till David Ibrahim joins the show because he'll fight me on that very, very much so. He says pick three, Mike, that is. In a standard league, Agbuka, Garrett Wilson, Ted McMillan, Ladd, Keenan Allen. Man, this is so good. So one of the metrics I like to look at for wide receivers is first three targets and first three target percentage per fantasy point status suite. And so it kind of tells you like, okay, who are the wide receivers that the team's quarterbacks are really locking into and giving the most opportunity to, first opportunity to. And then you kind of look at from there on, like, okay, what are these wide receivers who are being targeted first doing from a fantasy perspective? And Keenan Allen has been the guy in Los Angeles for the Chargers. Ted McMillan has been the guy here for the Carolina Panthers. And Garrett Wilson is Garrett Wilson. And I think in that order are where I would go picking those wide receivers just because, Keenan Allen has that connection with Justin Herbert, Garrett Wilson, regardless who's the quarterback. And I think that's the key part there. Regardless of the quarterback, Garrett Wilson always produces, and the target volume just goes Ted McMillan's way. I was looking at Xavier Legette just for shits and giggles here. Pardon, cover your ears, folks, who are sensitive about that cursing thing. So atrocious. So atrocious. Whether it's first read target share or productivity or fantasy points a game or fantasy points expected, just not great. Egbuka, someone might be saying, why are you saying not to start Egbuka? Great PPR asset. I'm a little bit concerned from a standard league situation. Standard leagues, I like guys who can kind of go deep as well as get the yards after the catch, which Kabuka is. But then there's always the concern that Mike Evans is going to be around there, and Mike Evans is going to have one of those, weeks. I would be more confident in starting Mike Evans in a standard league than I would in Buka. So I would go Wilson, Tet, Keenan. What about you there, Mike? Excuse me, Jonathan.
Yeah, I mean, in a standard league. Also, I was going to say I love seeing clips of like on social media when it'll say like 1 point in like PPR scoring, and it'll be someone just like catching a ball at a line of scrimmage versus Derrick Henry like pushing 15 players over, and it's like the same number of points for like a 0 yard catch and a 10 yard run. Um, it's I mean, with standard leagues, I mean, obviously touchdowns are huge in like all fantasy scoring, but obviously even more so in a standard league. So I love someone like Ted McMillan, but I worry a little bit about the kind of the upside of kind of leaning on someone like the sort of the offensive system in Carolina. Um, Actually kind of similar with Wilson. I suppose with maybe Tyrod is kind of a we see kind of more from Tyrod than we did from Fields last week. So I agree with you on Keenan Allen. I think he's been one of the sort of best one of the best draft picks so far this year. Just like, especially kind of given how much they're throwing it as well. Um, I never like to kind of start two receivers from the same team. You kind of like limit your upside slightly. Um, but I think I'd probably go Ladd, Keenan, and with Egbuka, I think it depends on the injury situation. I think I'd probably go Tet over Egbuka, but that one's pretty close for me.
Not to mention the Falcons' top cornerback AJ Terrell is looking like he's going to be missing this week, so I think that also plays into Ted McMillan. I like Eglich's comment here. He says, "Week 2, Garrett Wilson, no thanks." I'm curious to hear what his rationale is. Is it the Tyrod effect? Because it certainly can't be the Tampa Bay effect. When you look at a lot of their grading, they are ninth worst in the league in coverage. They are pretty poor in pass rush. The only thing that they've had a lot of success at is run defense, and that's because Tyke Smith has been coming down closer to the line of scrimmage and helping that linebacking core, get to the running back and pile up those tackles. Those in IDP leagues, if Tyke Smith is available on your waiver wire still, which I doubt he is, but if he is, I would definitely start him and put him in your defensive back spot. So, Eglich, I'm always down for a debate. Always love to hear what you got to say there. So please drop it in the chat. Let's talk about let's talk about your feelings about what's going on here with Garrett Wilson this week. All right, let's get into some more news and notes before we get to some more of these questions. Jake Browning, starting for the quarterback for the Bengals, for the foreseeable future. And let's face it, folks, I'm in a situation personally where I have Joe Burrow on my bench. I'm only allowed one IR spot, and I already have George Kittle in there, right? So the thought of like potentially dropping Joe Burrow for if he does come back with the weapons that they have on this Bengals offense has been weighing on my mind heavily, very heavily. I actually dropped
that would be fantasy playoffs as well if he
yes,
if he did
I know. I know. And so I picked up Browning. I forget who I dropped. I think I picked up like Browning and dropped my third tight end there, and that's how bad or competitive the rosters are for this league. So that should tell you when you have 3 tight ends on your roster or you got 2 on your bench, like it's slim pickings. That being the case, Browning, I'm curious to look back in his stats here for where he was a couple seasons ago, where he took over from Burrow when Burrow had that wrist injury. While I'm doing that, Jonathan, maybe you could speak to what fantasy managers should expect from Higgins or Jamar Chase.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in this situation in my main league. I had the first pick and took Jamar Chase and was very excited about it. And I actually took Chase Brown on the turn when it came back to me. So I'm someone that has invested heavily in that Bengals offense. I I thought, like, obviously you lose a lot of the upside,
Mm-hmm.
like that we saw last year with Browning there rather than Burrow. But it's not as if all hope is lost. Like, Browning is a functional quarterback. Like, we've seen him do fairly well with a series of games, and we've also seen that kind of like last week, he likes to chuck it. He really he does not care about throwing an interception. Um, and if they are, they're 2-0. They're probably thinking, like, look, if we can kind of get to a situation where we're at 500 by the time that Burrow comes back, we can maybe make a playoff push. So it's not as if they're kind of going to be throwing it. They're kind of thinking that the season's lost.
No, agreed.
So I don't feel as bad kind of with Chase. I still think I still think he's got a top 5, top 10 fantasy receiver just because of his talent and hopefully them just scheming touches up for him. I think Higgins and Brown will take a bigger hit just because of the upside.
Let me continue with that in a second. Glitch says it was the first reason for him, the Tyrod Taylor. Okay, yeah, understandable. I completely understand that point of view, but for me, it's when you have the corpse of Aaron Rodgers being able to support him last year. Zach Wilson, didn't make him an every week bona fide wide receiver one, but definitely he had good wide receiver flex numbers. Maybe that's not what you're expecting. Maybe you need more based of your matchup or where your record is. But let me tell you something about Jake Browning. And for those who are putting all these questions in the YouTube chat, really appreciate you. If you're pressed for time, if things are coming up, we get it. It's Sunday morning. A lot of people have a lot of things going on. Drop us a super chat. Donation, and we'll be able to throw your question right on screen and answer it, and really give you detailed answers as to why we're picking who we're picking. Otherwise, just please be patient, stay with us. We will get to your questions. Going back to 2023, taking over for Joe Burrow. And I'll start from week 12 going into week 18 in terms of fantasy point performance. Week 12, 12.98. Okay, not great. Okay, then the following 3 weeks, 27, 25, 20. Week 16 versus Pittsburgh at Pittsburgh, 16.4. Week 17 at Kansas City, 21.08. And to the end of the season, 19. So not horrible numbers, right? Coming, so it's one of those things where, and plus they didn't have a balanced offense like they do this year with, Chase Brown, who I still think, Chase Brown managers just chill out. Everything's good. And, assuming Higgins can stay healthy, I think there's plenty of weapons on this offense that Jake Browning can find success. Now, whether that leads to on the field success, as far as like the Bengals winning a lot of these matchups, I question that. I would
Not
be happy.
Defense, but no.
Yeah. Thank you. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about fantasy. So we're definitely going to be keeping that in mind. So now that I'm seeing this, I'm kind of becoming like, okay, dropping Joe Burrow from this situation and just kind of rolling with what happens with Browning. My other quarterback in this league, let me bring it up here since I'm talking about it, who I lost to my boss last week in this league. So I definitely did not have a good week because
You let him win. You let him win. That's what you told me anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully he's not watching. I have CJ Stroud. And that's a little telling of where CJ Stroud has been so far this year. Although there is some upside with him going forward, as Christian Kirk is set to make his debut for the Texans this week, immediately goes after his old team, the Jacksonville Jaguars. One of the things about CJ Stroud heading into this season is that you heard a lot of talk from coaches was that, okay, he's going to get more control of the offense. He's going to be able to call his own plays. He's going to be able to do all the adjustments he needs to do. They're going to give him some independence. Hasn't really translated too well. Week 1 versus the Rams, 9.7 points. Last week versus Tampa Bay against the poor secondary, like I was just alluding to earlier, 14.98 points. Should CJ Stroud managers be worried there, Jonathan?
Yeah, he's someone that I have in like one of my oldest dynasty leagues. I got him in the draft a couple of years ago. Was really excited that first season, and then ever since I've just kind of, you keep thinking he's going to get back to that. So you're like, well, I'm not going to trade him away because obviously his value's dipped, but you can get back to that. But it's kind of like the longer it goes on, you're kind of like, how how do we actually get back to that? Because there are so many things like around it that kind of that that make me question the system. With that offensive line isn't good. The running game isn't good. Obviously, everyone loves Nick Chubb, but it's 2025. We probably shouldn't be leaning on on Nick Chubb for the running game. So it's kind of like, I think all of these things kind of around him as well are just kind of holding him back slightly as well. So yeah, I don't see it getting hugely kind of better from here. I think we'll have sort of some good odd weeks, but I think there are sort of bigger issues kind of holding him back.
I will say that the matchup is technically, from a fantasy point per game perspective, it does look good on paper, as the Jaguars allow the 11th most points per game, averaging 19.5 points per game to the quarterback position. So, getting, you're starting one of your starting wide receivers back in the lineup. We saw Nick Chubb, which I don't know if that was money or a mirage from Nick Chubb last week, but goddamn, that was really good to see, given the injury he had a couple seasons ago. So, assuming that they do have a balanced offense, I mean, this could be a good get right situation here for CJ Stroud. But if it's not, and I'm a CJ Stroud manager, I may have to start thinking about, okay, who do I have better on my option on my waiver wire? Jonathan Santiago in the chat says, in my opinion, Browning should be better this season and wasn't half bad when he was thrown in 2 seasons ago. Exactly. That's exactly what we were just saying. Great minds think alike there. Got another question here. We got Cap for Life. Welcome back to the show, gentlemen. Good morning to you, BTJ Franklin or Wandale Robinson.
I'm sticking with Brian Thomas Jr. He's too good to not be to kind of consistently not see fancy production. So I'm sticking with it.
Yeah, 100% agree. It is too. Well, I don't want to say that because I'm one of the belief that I was going to say the draft capital you had on Brian Thomas, just tell like you're not sitting him. I'm not one personally. My philosophy is draft capital helps me in the draft in terms of like getting, what I perceive to be the best players in the best situations. Now, you give me a month of data, you give me 2 months of data. The idea of draft capital means absolutely goddamn nothing to me. If anything, I'm trying to facilitate trades to people who that does matter for. I don't care about draft capital. I care about productivity and who's giving me any. And if Brian Thomas Jr. in another 3 weeks or so isn't showing up, and Trevor Lawrence isn't showing up, and this Liam Cohen offense is just dysfunctional, and the only person on this offense is Travis Etienne that you can really count on, then I'm shopping BTJ and trying to get as much as I can. Troy Franklin, like we were talking about earlier, has that rapport. Both he and Bo Nix at Oregon. We saw all the successes they had there. And in fact, I want to say it was Bo Nix who actually was trying to convince Sean Payton, like, you need to bring in Troy Franklin in the later rounds of the draft last year. And now we're seeing why. Or Wandale. I love Wandale Robinson. One of the things about him has always been, like, in a PPR league, man, the guy is going to at least get you 10 points minimum, but the issue with him last year was that he got so many targets, but he caught so few of them. That's not the case this year. He's catching a lot of his targets. Heading into last week, he had a 75% reception percentage, which is fantastic. And then what did we see last week? Holy crap, we're getting big chunk plays from Wan'Dale Robinson down the field, and he's catching them, and he's scoring touchdowns with them. Like, that was huge for me. So I for different reasons, and again, Cat for Life, I don't know whether this is a non-PPR, half PPR, or PPR league. That being the case, this is a good matchup for Jacksonville, and this is one of the situations where it's great to have Wan'Dale or Franklin on your roster, just in case BTJ does, dare I say, become a bust as the season continues. But for right now, I'm rolling with Brian Thomas. I agree with you there, Jonathan.
Yeah, I was just having a look. He had 12 targets last week. It's not as if the usage isn't there. I'm a big believer in Liam Cohen as well. Like we've seen the good work that he's sort of done. So I would still kind of keep faith with Brian Thomas.
See, Eglich gets it. He's like, agree with the BTJ stuff. Absolutely. JJ Warner in the chat, host of the Writer Dynasty podcast. What's going on, JJ? Good morning to you. Let's see here. Moggs is in the chat. Welcome back, Moggs. He says, should a 1 plus a 2 get it done for Brian Thomas Jr. in Dynasty? I'm not shopping him in Dynasty. I'm talking about from redraft. My perspective was from a redraft perspective. Like, don't get rid of Brian Thomas Jr. in Dynasty. Like, sometimes for Dynasty, we just got to take it year to year versus game to game and week to week, like we do in redraft, obviously.
Always look to use situations like this to try and trade for someone. Like, I was messaging someone in my league yesterday to try and get Brian Thomas because I was like, I know that team's 0-2. I'm also 0-2 in that league, but that's bye. Because people are going to start to panic. If they're 0-2 and they've got Brian Thomas clogging up their starting lineup.
Welcoming in David Ibrahim. David, good morning from the West Coast of the United States. How are you doing today?
Doing good, fellas. What's happening on this nice morning, afternoon? What time is it there, Jonathan?
It is just gone 2:30.
Gotcha. There we go.
What are you doing drinking coffee? What do you have to drink coffee for there, Jonathan?
It's tea. I'm obviously it's I've got to play up to the stereotypes, but I should. Yeah, there is. I didn't think I should have whiskey now, but there is some Scottish whiskey.
In
the other room.
I redid my bookshelves, and I've gotten into a lot of my old '90s comic books, which are all on display here. And I have some Batman comic books, specifically from the Nightfall series, where Bane broke his back, and then they had to rehabilitate him and all this stuff. And right by the books, the comic book issues where Batman's like rehabilitating his back, trying to get back to being Batman, is right where I have all my booze stacked behind that comic book. So within distance they are, and of course everything I got in my mini fridge over yonder. But like you said, it's too early, so I totally get it. Dave, why don't you take this question here from KJ? He's got it. Says Sam Darnold versus the Saints or Bo Nix versus the Chargers in a divisional matchup this week. Who'd you take? Darnold versus the Saints or Bo Nix versus the Chargers?
So tough one because Bo Nix is playing really well, but that Chargers D, I mean, they dismantled Geno Smith, after he threw for 384 yards against the Patriots week 1. It made him look silly, to be honest. But Sam Darnold is not playing like he did with the Vikings. So this is a tough one. I'm leaning Bo Nix just because of the talent, but Darnold's been a little bit off lately, a little bit hot and cold, especially even within the games. So Bo Nix is one of the handful of pocket quarterbacks we got. He likes to air the ball out. I think there's enough. Their secondary isn't that dangerous enough that I don't think they're just going to be pounding the rock anyway.
Jonathan, what are your thoughts on this situation here?
Yeah, I'm going for Bo Nix as well. I think I'd prefer to buy into that game as well. Kind of, I can't remember the over/under off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure the Seahawks Saints is one of the lowest over/unders this week. I think that Broncos-Chargers game will be higher scoring. We've seen kind of how well the Chargers have been playing on offense, so I think it might be a good kind of back and forth, that one. So yeah, I would go with Bo Nix.
All right. Okay, let's get into another quick. This one is, I want to say it's near and dear to my heart because I'm a defensive side of the ball person, but I like IDP and not team defense. That being the case, Atlanta versus Carolina or Denver versus the Chargers, like we were just talking about here for Cat for Life. So let's think about the scenarios here. Okay, the Atlanta defense is kind of devoid of good pass rushing edge rushers. That being the case, I'm a huge fan from an IDP perspective, especially in Dynasty, of James Pierce. I think the Falcons trading back into the end of the first round last year, regardless of the draft capital they gave up. Really big fan of James Pierce and everything he did from a pass rushing perspective. That being the case, when I look at the Carolina Panthers, something that really stood out to me was, where do you think the Panthers rank in sacks allowed on the season so far, Dave, if you had to guess?
I mean, you would assume dead last the way they've been playing, but
What about you, Jonathan? Where do you think they rank in terms of sacks allowed?
I would have said like bottom 5, but
they have allowed just 1 sack on the season.
Oh wow!
Really?
Right.
Okay.
And so you take a situation where you have questionable edge rushers or defensive line edge rushers for the Falcons going against a surprisingly good pass blocking unit from the Carolina Panthers, which, kudos, because I would never have picked that to be the case there.
So Bryce Young QB1 this week?
I mean, you know what? There's no AJ Terrell there for the Falcons, so if I had to guess here, it's right up there. So just something to think about. And again, that stat metric courtesy of fantasydata.com. That being the case, I'm a huge fan of the Denver Broncos defense. I think we're going to see a lot of back and forth in this game, but I do think the edge rushers for Denver are a lot better. Obviously, you have Nick Benito and Jonathan Cooper. The bookends, we got Alex Singleton, who's starting to get back up to speed. We got Teleno Hufanga, Brandon Jones. We got Jade Barron, who I'm looking for him to finally get some increase in snaps. The rookie here, slot cornerback. So I definitely believe more in the talent of Denver. So I would roll with Denver in this situation. Cat for life.
I do feel for Bryce Young, to be honest, just talking about him. He's got Teddy McMillan is his number one. The rookie is his best option, and Xavier Legette, he's just playing average. He's not playing terrible, but he's there. He exists.
A lot kinder than what Jorge said earlier.
Okay, I missed that part. But I feel for him. He's got no talent. I mean, who's the number one tight end there? I couldn't even tell you.
Jatavion Sanders. Yeah.
I just feel for the dude. If he had someone, I think he'd have a chance. But
Cat for Life also has a question of JSN and his availability. Nothing is set in stone as of yet, and of course, when we have any breaking news, cover your ears, folks. Boom shakalaka! That will be played, and you will hear all the breaking news coming your way. And of course, I will give you the heads up of cover your ears, because Jorge did not go back and reduce the volume there. Let's get into some of the last remaining portions of the news and notes for this week as we have them currently. And we talked about him a little bit. Wan'Dale Robinson. Reports out of this week are that from the Giants, is that if they lose against Kansas City this week, that Brian Daboll has been petitioning hard to get Jackson Dart into that starting lineup. If that is the case, obviously you're not trying to move Malik Neighbors, right?
So after Russ threw for 400 plus yards,
right,
and played lights out, they're going to bench him. Apparently,
Dart
is the answer. That makes no sense to me.
Apparently, well,
I think he played great. He threw a couple of picks, but he played great.
But that being the case, is Wan'Dale Robinson somebody that you want to have on your redraft roster if Jackson Dart becomes the starting quarterback, or what are your thoughts here, Jonathan? Or are you still holding true on Wan'Dale Robinson?
I am very conscious of who they played last week as well. um, so I think that I think if you can get a good trade for Wan'Dale Robinson going, then I would be in favor of that. I think we've seen these like huge spike weeks from him in the past. Um, so he's certainly not someone that I would sort of guarantee that is going to be seeing that every week. I think if we see it again over the next couple of weeks, then we can start to sort of, you know, start to have a little bit more faith in him. But I would be happy to try and shop him around, just based on last week's huge spike week.
Iglich says, I'm in a few IDP leagues. I think I'm in the right place. I think you are too. In fact, I know you are. And if you want to hear us talk more IDP here at Fantasy and Frames on Wednesdays, we have our Fantasy and Wednesdays live streaming podcast. We're at 9:00, our IDP podcast with Gary Davenport, who writes everywhere from NBC to Roto-World to the Bleacher Report to you name it. Football Guys writes for us, does our IDP waiver wire. He'll be on the show. My co-host JT and Steve Hungarter, IDP Hunter, over on Twitter. All of us on the same show called Shoot the Gap, or the Shoot the Gap podcast, which you can subscribe wherever it is you listen to podcasts. We go live from 9 to 10 p.m. Eastern, covering all your IDP information there. So definitely stop on by.
Is there such thing as a defense-only league?
You can create one. Oh, yeah. I'm in an IDP only dynasty. The Shoot the Gap Listener League, our podcast Listener League, all defensive positions. That's it.
Okay. Because I've only ever seen it where it's part of a offensive league.
Yeah, that is a more common. That's how I started out. But then, the more I got into the defensive side of the ball, the more I'm just like, let's really go insane here, and let's have like 3 linebackers and 3 defensive linemen and 3 defensive ends and 3 IDP flexes, and then it just is grown and grown and grown. Jelly of the month, welcome back, Jelly. Both quarterbacks, both QBs out and big underdog. Mariota versus Vegas, Love versus Cleveland. 6 points per passing touchdown. 1 point for each rushing touchdown. All right. David, who are you rolling with here? Mariota or Jordan Love?
I mean, we're going with the talent. We're going with Love. Mariota hasn't started a game in, 2 years? I don't know. I just don't really have the confidence in Mariota. Plus, he's more of a rushing quarterback anyway. He's not one to typically air the ball out. So, it's got to be Jordan Love.
Yep. And of course, I don't have to ask the Packers fan where his thoughts process is, so we'll just leave it at that. Charlene, welcome to the chat. Sorry it took so long to get your all's questions. And everybody, thank you very much for being patient. We have a lot of news and notes to get to, but obviously we are very passionate about answering your questions as well as giving you some information as far as players to think about, to play and fade this week, to pay attention to maybe for waiver wires situations. But I regress. Charlene, good morning to you. 2 points for PPR, 8-point passing touchdowns. Cortland Sutton or Ricky Pearsall. Other starting wide receivers are Egbuka and Drake London. Man, so obviously the PPR, Egbuka leads to that. Drake London is due for a bounce back after that kind of poor performance last week, poor-ish performance last week from him versus the Vikings. So it's really. Do you think Troy Franklin and Bo Nix is the only pairing in Denver, or do you think Sutton has potential for a bounce back? And if Brock Purdy does come back, Pearsall, is he going to usurp the target share from Juwan Jennings, which we'll get to in the last bit of news and notes? Jonathan, let's start with you.
I've been dealing with this situation in a fair few of my teams because I've got a decent amount of Cortland Sutton. Unfortunately, I mean, what we need to work out is kind of which was the outlier. Was it week 1 or week 2? My hope is that it was last week was the outlier, and obviously we saw good production kind of through the second half of last season. So I think my hope is that that it was just a kind of your sort of natural variance of things. but I'm still very, very high on Pearsall. I know that last week was a little bit kind of, obviously, Jennings saw more targets than Pearsall, but Jennings is still dealing with injury. Although I feel as though if we're talking about a 49ers player, you should just assume that they're dealing with injury at this point. I think Pearsall is kind of a safer pick here for me, just because of the kind of variance that we've seen with Sutton. Yeah, so I think I would probably go Pearsall.
What about you, Dave? David,
Pearsall's the pick. I mean, he's still, even though he had a disappointing week last week. Were you there? I'm still going with Pearsall, even though he had a disappointing week. He still caught the ball 4 times. So, it happens every now and then. You get some flash in the pan from another receiver, but I think Pearsall's still the one over there. Mac Jones still likes to air the ball out. Is it confirmed Mac Jones is playing today, or is Brock Purdy?
It is not confirmed yet.
Do we have any?
It is not confirmed yet. We're still waiting to hear back on whether or not he'll start at the 4:00 game.
Feel like they're gonna play it safe and let Mac Jones play another week. He did decent last week. I mean, you can't really complain when he played. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Juan Pena Jr., thank you very much for being patient. Let's get to your question next. Who for my wide receiver? Okay, so basically all your receivers and a flex. Let's talk about his wide receivers to use. He's got QJ, Debo, Devontae Adams, Troy Franklin, Kayshon Boutte, Hollywood Brown. Had to pick 3 wide receivers from this group. Dave, let's start with you. Who would you roll with this week and why?
I'll go with Devontae Adams. I mean, they were forcing that ball to Devontae Adams like a square in a round hole. They want to get him involved. So, what did he get? Like 12 targets or something? Something absurd. I've got Hollywood Brown conundrums at the moment. So, I've got a situation where I got Hollywood Brown and Keenan Allen. And I don't know who to start. You would assume this week and this week only, Hollywood Brown, I would lean towards him. He's the one. There's really no one else there other than Travis Kelce. They're playing the Giants. We saw what happened last week. So I'm going Adams, I'm going Hollywood Brown. And as crazy as it is to say, Quentin Johnson has been playing really good. So I don't know. I know it's a little bit wild, but I'm going to go with QJ as my wide receiver 3. I mean, Jonathan Taylor, if that's your flex, you got a good problem. So that's who I'm taking.
So I'm right there with you on QJ. When I was talking about this metric earlier, first read targets and first read target share. So which wide receiver is the team's quarterback locking onto first? For Justin Herbert, it's QJ. And then Keenan Allen is right there behind him, right there. So is Ladd McConkey. And the fact is that the fact that Justin Herbert has the potential to make 3 wide receivers on his team relevant and is looking at them pretty comparably every week, that should tell you something for all the Justin Herbert managers out there. Like, you are in for a very good season. Justin Herbert a couple seasons ago, I want to say, I think it was like 3 or 4 seasons ago, was a top 5 QB in fantasy. We could be seeing something along those lines, even though he does not have the rushing upside that a lot of other quarterbacks do. So I would agree with you on QJ, Devontae Adams, and Hollywood Brown. Just the target volume. Just eventually the targets are going to add up. Troy Franklin, need to see it more than just a week. And Kayshon Boutte, yes, he had that 1 touchdown last week, but then as far as everything else goes, kind of a quiet week. That being the case, I don't want to say a poor analogy here and make the mistake we made last week with some other comments, but I'm a fan of Kayshon. There we go. I didn't say a fan of the booty, but then that being the case, that's also true. But that's neither here nor there. So definitely want to see more of Kayshon Boutte going forward, but as well as Troy Franklin. So that's who I'd roll with. Debo. If it's going to be a wide receiver for Washington, it's going to be McLaurin that gets funneled the targets here, not Debo Samuel. Jonathan, who are you rolling with this week as far as these 3 wide receivers are concerned?
Yeah, I think I'm the same as you guys on this. The only one that I'm so definitely Devontae Adams and Hollywood Brown. I think if I suppose there's two here. If we've got a third and a flex, so I think the two would be Quentin Johnson. I think Troy Franklin, just given the usage last week, I'm willing to kind of buy into that a little bit. Obviously, he saw a fair few targets week one as well, and we've already mentioned about that the relationship that they had. So I think Franklin would be the other one for me.
Can I give him props for how clean this comment was written?
Mm-hmm.
We even have like proper sentence structure, and we've even got the team net, DN, like very nice.
Nicely done, Juan. Again, thank you very much for your question.
He's even got Kittle IR in brackets, just so we remember.
Yeah, it's not just a huge jumble of like text where it's like, how do I even start? All right, Anthony G. What's up, Anthony? Thank you very much for staying with us. In this NE3 IDP 14 team league with tackle. So the scoring here is solo tackles 2 points, assisted tackles 1 point, a sack 5 points. So we're looking at big play scoring here with the sacks being 5 points. He's got Tyrell Dodson, who according to Fantasy Pros IDP scoring is the linebacker 1 so far this week, after that one game we've played, but that was hell of a performance. I believe he had like 20 something fantasy points. Carson Schleicher, Logan Wilson, or Bobby Wagner. Quay Walker is available. Would you take him over any of these guys? Man, I'm a big fan of Carson. Give me somebody who always is going to be on the field, who's the green dot collar there for the Cleveland Browns. This should be a fairly, fairly straightforward IDP matchup here for the inside linebacker for Cleveland. So I would do that. That being the case, this kind of piggybacks onto another question here regarding Quay Walker from Jeremy. So thank you very much there, Anthony. Jeremy, no, Quay Walker or Devin White? Is Devin White really back? Devin White is really back. I would go with Devin White. The only concern I had for Devin White heading into the season was Jermaine Pratt coming over from free agency from the Cincinnati Bengals, who was coming off of a huge year. We've been seeing him playing less at the line of scrimmage, in the box rather, and more used in edge rushing situations, which is a skill set that I didn't know that he had, and I don't think he does. So the tackle volume is really going all to Devin White. So for 2 weeks into the season, Jeremy, Devin White has been back. So I would roll with him. Although Quay Walker, I think, does have some good upside going against Cleveland here, just because of the run heavy nature of the Browns offense, which I think will start to take forward now that Quinshon Judkins is back.
Real quick, we briefly were talking about the Chargers before, and I'm sure we'll talk about it in a bit. How worried are you about Ladd McConkey?
I'm not at all.
I am.
Why are you worried about Ladd McConkey?
Because Keenan Allen's there, and QJ has finally stepped up. So you've got the deep threat in QJ. You've got Keenan Allen, who has been averaging 7 targets a game and playing efficiently in it. I mean, he's looking for Keenan in the red zone. He's looking for QJ, at the post. I'm not saying Ladd McConkey's not there, but you drafted him probably as your wide receiver 1. And he's fighting with Keenan Allen for, wide receiver 2 spot on his own team.
I think if you're worried about the draft capital you invested in Ladd McConkey, you're not getting the wide, like to what you were just saying, the wide receiver 1 numbers that we should have been getting. So I can understand.
You drafted him round 2, 3, something like that in a 12-man league. Like, that's heavy. That's you're relying on that guy to be putting up, on average 100 in a tutty, or whatever.
Right. So the counterpoint I'll make here is that the fact that Justin Herbert still is looking at him, like I was mentioning QJ being the first read target. He's been looked at first read targets 12 times. Ladd McConkey's at 11. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, okay, well, it's not like he's not looking his way. They haven't been connecting so far. And 2 weeks into the season, I'm willing to give Ladd McConkey the benefit of the doubt just because of how good of a wide receiver he is. Let's pick up some of the pace here and get to some of these questions. Running a little bit behind on some of these. So again, really appreciate you being patient. Let's get into JAC's question. Start one. A banged up Tucker Kraft, who we don't even know will be playing at Cleveland, or Kyle Pitts in Carolina with a 0.75 PPR. Dave, what are your thoughts here?
Man, I was watching highlights of Tucker Kraft last week. He's good. Honestly, I don't think I ever gave him the respect that he deserves. He plays every position well, like out of the slot, going deep. He's a big body receiver. If he's playing, I'm not sitting him. I mean, right now, if you have Travis Kelce or Tucker Kraft, you go on Tucker Kraft, aren't you?
Yes, absolutely. His
Oh,
yards
man.
per route run and yards after the catch reception, just
fantastic.
amazing.
Yeah.
So you may have Kyle Pitts as default, given the injury situation there with Tucker Kraft. So pay attention to that. And of course, if we have any breaking news on that, we'll be playing that very loud and annoying breaking news sound drop that I created. You're welcome. Will Powers in the chat with Will. He says, "Morning. I got a couple questions for you. Full PPR, flex. Dontavian Wicks, Rudy Marks, RJ Harvey, Mark Andrews, or Travis or Tucker. Sorry, thank you. I would go Wicks. I was a big fan of Wicks last week, and I just feel like with Jaden Reed, what was it? He had a knee injury and he had a shoulder injury, and they took care of both in surgery. And apparently, there's like this TikTok or a video floating around of him immediately after surgery and in the PACU and waking up and being all groggy or something. You have to go find it there on TikTok or Instagram or whatever it is social media site you use, but it was pretty hilarious apparently from what I hear. But the receiving options, Wicks needs to be rostered in redraft leagues right now, given the injury situation at the wide receiver position. So Marks, you have Chubb in the way. Harvey, we have Dobbins. Andrews has fallen off the map, and Tucker just, give me Wicks here. Anybody have any different opinions here? Jonathan, let's start with you.
Yeah, I think I'm going Wicks as well. As much as I want to say Harvey, I think because it's not just Dobbins, it's also Tyler Bidet as well. So it's kind of a who's taking a lot of the passing work that we'd want to be going to RJ Harvey just isn't going there yet. And yeah, I think I'm going Wicks here as well.
All right, got another question here. He's got a couple of rookies in his lineup: Carson Washington, Jahad Campbell. I just dropped Campbell for Landman. Would you drop Carson for Devin White, Demario Davis, Murray, Winters, or Roseboom? Negative on Roseboom, Winters, or Murray. I love the resurgence in tackle volume in Demario Davis per Fantasy Pro scoring heading into week 3. He was the number 1 linebacker, he was in the top 10 linebackers in fantasy points per game. Devin White, his resurgence in Las Vegas, looks to be, as we were telling Jeremy earlier, the real deal. Would I drop Carson here? Believe it or not, for Devin White, given the fact that I'm not having to worry about Jermaine Pratt eating into any of his tackle volume, I would make that play. He is the guy in that Raiders defense. Wow. Yeah, I think I definitely would. I would definitely drop Carson Schwarzenegger for Devin White. I'm a believer, Devin. Let's see here. Jeremy's in the chat. Flex Egbuka. This isn't PPR. Egbuka or Jerry? Who is that supposed to be?
They're playing the Jets, aren't they?
Oh, okay. So wow. Okay, thanks, Jeremy. Egbuka versus the Jets or Kyron
versus Jeremy.
or Jerry, exactly. Wow, it's early. I need more coffee. Fortunately, I moved my Keurig into my office, so I don't have to go too far to get a refill. Dave, are you rolling with Egbuka or Kyron Williams in PPR?
I mean, Kyron is the definition of a safety blanket. So I like Kyron. I mean, he's typically getting a touchdown every game. He's the number 1 there. He catches the ball, rushes the ball well. I'm going Kyron. I understand the Philly defense is pretty stout this year, but it's still hard to bench him.
So I kind of want to roll Egbuka because I know Sauce Gardner is going to be all over Mike Evans, and therefore the slot cornerbacks, basically the ancillary cornerbacks for the Jets, don't really concern me. So for the PPR, I would roll Egbuka. All right, Jonathan, break the tie. Who are you rolling with?
I'm actually going to sit on the fence here, and
wait.
This
is not what we're about, Jeremy. Go on.
I think it kind of depends on your team, because I think you're kind of both right. That I think Kyron is the safer play. Obviously, with Ibuka's potential injury, Kyron's a safer play. So if you need more
He's been up
upside,
and down.
if it looks as though you're going to be down in the matchup, I would probably go Ibuka, just because I'm kind of a little bit worried about the Philly defense.
What were you going to say, David?
He's been, because I thought early in the week he was not going to play, and then it seems like he's trending towards playing, right?
Right. So that that jumps into. Thanks, Jeremy, for the question. That jumps into Jack Straw's point here on PPR Ibuka on
That's
a snap
my
count,
concern.
or Diggs instead. Give me Ibuka because of the defensive cornerback matchup. Even on limited snaps, I think he can do a lot of good versus this secondary, especially in the slot position. If Ibuka is lined up there, and let's think about that. That'd probably be where he'd be most effective, though, in the slot, right? Like if he has an ankle injury, probably don't want your guy with an ankle injury to run a lot of deep routes running at full speed versus these short to intermediate routes to get the receptions. I think that kind of leans more to what his skill set and opportunity should be providing him this week.
Yeah, man, what are you doing with Diggs? He's terrible. He's not even the number one on his own team, I don't think. I'm serious. He sucks. Honestly, if you had better options, I would be okay with dropping Diggs, depending on who you had. I mean, sure. He's safe. He's probably flex, but even at a flex, are you happy with him at your flex?
So in half PPR scoring, Stephon Diggs is the wide receiver 55, averaging 7 points a game. Gross.
Yeah, and I have this exact decision to make in my main home league is Ibuka and Diggs, and I'm still going Ibuka here just because I don't think Diggs is offering you enough upside at the moment. I kind of thought he would be a pretty safe pick, to be honest. I thought he'd be the wide receiver one there, but yeah, just hasn't turned out that way.
All right, Jonathan, let's get to your question now. Other Jonathan, Santiago. What guys, pick one, T. Higgins or Jameson Williams in PPR. Also pick one, Pickens or Wandale, point PPR, first down. So, I mean, it's Higgins, right? Jameson Williams, I'd roll with T. Higgins here, as well as looking here for Pickens or Wandale in point PPR. After last week, I'm going to roll with Wandale. Wandale and Higgins here. David, do you agree, or are you giving me a counter situation?
No, Higgins is definitely the play. So it's funny, we spoke about JMO last week, and I was saying his floor is potentially 0. Now, he ended up putting up 111 yards and a touchdown. However, that was on 2 catches and 2 targets. So it kind of just, even though he put up great numbers, that's really risky. He's not going to go for 50 yards, 55 yards on each catch, right? So I'd much rather T. Higgins. I mean, Browning is not bad, man. He can throw the ball, so I'm okay with that. Pickens, I think I'm going to stick with Pickens, to be honest. It's early. Dak's looking for him. I don't want to take the risk with a Wandale Robinson because we don't know what kind of game we're getting tonight.
Charlene saying, filling in for Nate with the jokes. So last week I made a joke about Dak Prescott and what he would be saying at the line of scrimmage, which everybody was like, oh, you can't say that. That's horrible. Coincidentally, the second I said that, the ratings for the show started to take off, and then Nate, not to be outdone, decided to make a joke about Bo Nix. That was also like, oh my God, you can't say that. But it's like, no, we did. So deal with it. So Charlene loving what we did a little bit earlier. Jerry in the chat. What's up, Jerry? He says, hey guys, start 2. Pittman, Wandale, Booty, or Golden here in a PPR. For me, it's Wandale and Pittman for your first 2 guys. Jonathan, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, same for me. I am really intrigued by Golden this week, but yeah, I am going for the first 2.
You definitely saw the manufactured touches against Washington and trying to get to them, and then on the 2 deep passes, Jordan Love and him just missed out. But
and it's been close as well. He's been close to getting, he was close to scoring a touchdown as well, I seem to remember. So there have been very close misses to some big plays. So those big weeks are coming.
all right, we got a question from Nikki Banks, who originally, when I first was going through the chat, I saw Nikki Bella. I'm like, say what? But Nikki, you're the better Nikki here on the show, so we appreciate you. Am I starting Mariota over Lawrence? Let me tell you, this is like the be all end all here for me for Trevor Lawrence. I have right now, let me just give you full disclosure. I have Browning and I have Lawrence on my starting roster in one league, and I'm putting Browning there, and I'm not even thinking twice. That being the case, in this situation, I'm rolling with T-Law. The Texans give up a lot of fantasy points per game to the quarterback position. This should be, I feel, a pretty decent fantasy scoring matchup here. Let's see here where they line up here. They have a 44.5 over under. So this should be a pretty decent scoring game. Anybody disagree? Anybody have any rationale for why Mariota might start over Trevor Lawrence, Dave? Frozen, are you there?
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Okay. Let's get into our last piece of information here before we get into Fantasy Flex. Juwan Jennings, last week we saw him return to the lineup and saw a 26.3% target share. Holy crap. If you're the Pearsall manager, how much does that concern you going forward that we saw him basically, Jennings that is, have very limited practice opportunities, yet stepped on the field? Granted, that was with Mac Jones. All right. If Purdy comes back this week, does that change your opinion on Pearsall? But if Mac Jones stays, basically what I'm trying to say is what your opinions are for Ricky Pearsall with either quarterback as the starting option there, Jonathan.
I'm still fairly confident with Pearsall. I think because with Jennings, there are these kind of ongoing injury concerns as well. So I think it is going to be one of those things where, like, for the Jennings manager, week in, week out, you're going to be watching practice reports. You're going to be seeing how much he's playing. In Jennings, Jennings played in week 1, but he was only at something like 65% snap share. And it was I can't remember the target share, but I think he only had sort of 5 or so targets. So I think, given the other injuries kind of that are ongoing in that team as well, there is going to be more than enough for both of them. And so I'm still fairly confident that Pearsall will still be a good option for teams. No matter who the quarterback is, I am going to feel a lot better about it when Purdy is there, just because of I think someone said in the comments about it, about Purdy sort of chucking it deep, and we kind of saw a lot of that kind of connection in the preseason and a lot of sort of camp reports. So it sounds as though Purdy, if he's not playing today, is not far away. So that makes me feel pretty good about Pearsall.
So, Will, to help stir the pot some more, Charlene, and to get me to get more in trouble with things you can't say nowadays on air, he says, if you have the booty, wouldn't it be prudent to have the baddie as well? So you have the baddie booty. That would be accurate, I would say.
I thought it was baddie. I didn't realize till the announcers called him bidet. I'm like, no, that's not a fridge toilet flushing device. It's baddie.
Wait, is it really? Is it not pronounced baddie? It's pronounced bidet. Are you serious or no?
Yeah, apparently it's bidet.
No, it's bidet. It sounds like the. Go watch tape. Go watch tape.
That is utterly freaking hilarious.
It's bidet. He's the water,
I'm not calling
him flushing
that.
Booty cleaner. Bidet is the booty cleaner.
There we go.
Oh my god! Wow. Okay, shifting really quickly to Ryan's question. Thank you for being patient, Ryan. Jonathan is back. Yes, Jonathan is back. Hopefully, we'll have him back for more shows going forward. Standard League question again. Thank you so much for keeping Standard Leagues alive. Really appreciate that. Keenan Allen or Igbuka worried about the Egbuka injury here. Dave, you were referencing, hey, you're worried about Ladd because you're so impressed with Keenan Allen. Given the fact, though, that Egbuka has been playing lights out, but is also dealing with an injury, do you confidently start Allen over Egbuka? And I stress the word confidently.
If I'm looking for save points, I'm starting Keenan Allen. I'm just worried about the snap count. I think if the Bucks get off to a decent lead, they're not going to risk it with him, and they're just going to bench him, which I expect the Bucks to start to really pull away. I mean, they get a 3-touchdown lead early in the third quarter. You're not going to see Egbuka for the rest of the game. That's my concern. Whereas Keenan Allen, I think he plays the whole game. So if you're looking for safe points, I'm going Keenan Allen. If you're looking for upside, I'm going Egbuka.
All right. Thank you very much for the question. Chivalry King, glad to see you're not dead. See what I did there? Chivalry, dead. Chivalry is dead. Okay, whatever. I thought it was funny. Jared Goff or Bo Nix this
We need
week?
one of those crickets sounds.
Yeah, I think, yeah. You can always make the cricket sound yourself if you want, just until we get the sound effects. Jared Goff this week or Bo Nix. Also, DJ Moore or Troy Franklin. Standard League. Again, thank you for keeping... Chivalry is not dead. Thank you very much for keeping standard leagues alive there.
Why do you like standard league so much?
I don't like rewarding points for negative plays. If a wide receiver gets a play for -2 yards behind the line of scrimmage, he should not be rewarded just for catching the ball. It's like
why not? This every team has 60 to 70 snaps a game, and they decided that person is one of those players who's going to get one of those snaps. They deserve a point.
It's just like leagues where it's like a point per rushing attempt. Like, what do you mean a point per rushing attempt? Their job is to run the ball. Like, literally, the quarterback is handing them the ball to rush. Like, just like the point of a wide receiver is to literally catch the ball. Like, that is their primary job. They're not doing anything special with it. They're just catching the goddamn thing. Why do they need to be rewarded for that? More importantly, if they made PPR and half PPR leagues where the default scoring is you don't get points, you don't get a reception point or half a point for a negative play, cool. All right. It's the negative plays that really mess with my head. That's why I'd rather deal with in a standard league or a non-PPR league where like you just avoid all that. You either get positive points or negative points for positive plays or negative plays. It's just simplified. It makes a lot of sense. That's why I love it.
Okay, well, we're talking about Keenan Allen, right? Keenan Allen is the kind of guy who might get 7 yards on a catch, but he'll do it on a first down and make it easy for the running back to, get 3 or 4 yards and get that first down. So it's not pretty, but he runs these clean enough routes to get separation, to get 7-8 yards. You got to reward that.
Agree to disagree. Okay, Jonathan, Jared Goff or
he knows I'm right.
This week.
This is really tough because I do want to say Jared Goff. I'm really hoping this is going to be a big scoring game. I'm pretty sure this is the highest over/under of the week.
Yes, it is at 53.5. Yep.
Damn.
I know it's on the road, but I think I'm taking the risk with Jared Goff.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Dave?
Yeah, absolutely Goff. He played wild last week. And, I mean, all his guys are playing the way they should. I mean, you've got, Jameson Winston, he's the wide receiver too, putting up 100-plus yards in a tutty. Like, he's just too good. But yeah, like Troy Franklin. Sorry, go. No, I was just going to say Troy Franklin. Like, I don't know. I don't know if, this is like Oasis's song Wonderwall, and is it really going to be a one-hit wonder? Yeah, I'd like to see different, but, I don't know, man. Hard to say. Sometimes you get these random...
I will not take Oasis slander.
Name me 3 other Oasis songs.
Champagne Supernova, Supersonic.
What's the
all right, Champagne Supernova is good. Okay, fair enough.
What's the one with is it What's the Morning
Story Morning Glory?
That's the album, but there's one where it's like Sally can wait. It's what is the name of that song?
Too late?
Yeah, exactly.
I know. He's walking on
Champagne Supernova.
Yeah. Anyhow, whatever.
Don't look back in anger. Don't look back.
Don't look. Thank you. Don't look back in anger. Thank you. Love that song, even though I couldn't remember its name. So I would go with golf.
I really
as well.
just proved my own point, didn't I?
A little bit.
I didn't even realize I could name that many Oasis songs. Fair enough.
There you go. DJ Moore. We look at the targets here on the team for the Chicago Bears. He's third with 11 targets on the season. We have Roma Dunze with 20. Zacchaeus at slot wide receiver. So Andy Behrens, formerly of Yahoo, now in the deepshot.com, honorary member here of the Fantasy and Frames family, who will be on at 11:30 weekly every Saturday, 11 to 12 as we close out the show, joins us. And he was one of the people in week 1 who started to sing the praises of Olamide Zacchaeus, in the fact that everybody wants Luther Burden, the rookie, to be the guy, but it's Zacchaeus that the coaching staff loves. It's the coaching, and it's evident. Caleb Williams loves him as well with the 12 targets, more so than DJ Moore. I will say, though, Moore has been the more productive wide receiver in terms of catch percentage among all the other wide receivers here. But it's Odunze with the productivity, with 165 total yards on the season and 3 touchdowns. No other wide receiver on the Chicago Bears has a tutty. So I'm believing the Troy Franklin dip here. I can understand if you wanted to stack Bo Nix and Troy Franklin, but I feel more comfortable with Jared Goff as my starting quarterback, in which should be a good game given the high over-under and just how well they were playing last week. Mr. Scampers is in the chat. What's up, Mr. Scampers? Half PPR. I can let that slide. I'm okay with half PPR. Monty at Baltimore or Wandale versus Kansas City. So the real question here is, was what we saw from Russell Wilson an illusion, or money, or was it a mirage situation? And again, going up against the Kansas City Chiefs, which I think this game is going to be fairly one-sided. You're not going to get, the Giants and Cowboys from last week. That being the case, I would go with David Montgomery in this situation. What about you here, Jonathan?
Yeah, I think that's probably a safer pick. I think it should be higher scoring. And we've kind of, he's still seeing continued usage, particularly around the goal line. So I think you're kind of hoping for a touchdown there.
All right, let's go to our next question.
I'm going the opposite. I'm going Wandale. I'll tell you why. If it's a negative game script, I don't think we see Monty at all. I think we've finally seen the shift to Gibbs being the primary back rather than a split backfield. So last week was a really good script for Monty, where they were just running the ball and he fell into the end zone. But I'm worried about Montgomery.
No, that's a fair point. Let's get to our next comment here. Mr. Magic, Tony Pollard or Tyler Warren. So I was just looking up the injury report here over at NFL.com. And so Tajay Spears is not listed.
Is it Tyler Warren or is it Jalen Warren?
Wait, is that a T or a J? That is a great question. That would actually make a lot more sense. Jalen Warren or Tony Pollard. So
this is where we need the dude who put the proper grammar and put the team names in there. help, all right? See, these are the kind of questions we get, Good grammar.
The editor, the kind of
Exactly. Sorry, Mr. Magic. So if it's Jalen Warren, it's Jalen Warren for me. What about you, David?
Give me any Warren. I'll take Tyler Warren or Jalen Warren all over Pollard. I'm a bit worried about Pollard in general. So nice. Jeremy Noble in the chat. Sorry for the drastic typo early. Apparently, I need coffee. Jerry. Okay. Money or Mirage situation. Is it a money mirage, meaning a true statement, or one that you can believe, or is it? I think he was trying to say the JETS Jets thing.
I'm trying to get somewhere with the Jerry chance. Do you think the majority of the people watching this show understand the Jerry Springer reference with that, or do you think more people do not get it, Dave?
So I'm 40, so I absolutely understand that, but people don't really. It's not really a show that's on anymore, right?
Is it not anymore? I'm disconnected.
I don't really see it too much, but who knows?
Yeah.
I understand the reference over here. So
see, look, it's bidet. Charlene confirmed it's bidet.
Love it.
Tell you.
We got Andrew. What's up in the chat? What's up, Andrew? He says flex Hollywood or Cup, Hawkinson or Goddard this week. So again, it goes back to target volume with Hollywood Brown. Just dominating the targets at the wide receiver position. Hawkinson or Goddard, that is a little bit tough. Let me pull up something really quickly here. Well, Jonathan, do you have any thoughts here on Hawkinson or Goddard?
Not particularly.
Who's a quarterback this week?
I'm like, can we say neither? Because I'm like, Hawkinson has just been so poor to start the season, and I mean, if Goddard is playing, obviously we saw him get some good usage in the first game, so I think I'd probably go with Goddard just because of how disappointing Hawkinson has been. And the only other thing that I would say for the I would also go Hollywood over Cup. The only thing that I would note before the games kick off is just see what the JSN news is, because obviously if he's going to be limited, or if he's out, then Cup will see a massive spike. But if JSN is playing, then I'd go Hollywood.
We got Prince Harry at quarterback in Minnesota this week, right?
Who's Prince Harry?
Wentz.
Wentz.
Oh, wow. That is so disrespectful to Prince Harry. Okay, yeah.
No, come on. Don't tell me they didn't look alike. But nevertheless, like, I'm actually okay.
Oh, yeah.
Come on. Google.
Yeah, I'm it's popping up in my head right now.
There's been a million comparisons from Prince Harry with Carson Wentz. Just Google online.
Yeah,
you'll see.
pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
But hey, we got a pocket quarterback throwing the ball. I like Carson Wentz throwing the ball to Hawkinson this week. I'm not a big McCarthy fan. I've got to be honest with you.
Really?
He's got some talent around him, and he's doing nothing with it. So, I think we're going to see some decent play. I mean, if you're desperate at QB, if you're in a 2 QB league, don't be afraid to throw in Wentz. I think we'll see some magic out of him.
Okay. I'm rolling with Goddard this week. I mean, last year in the divisional round, he got you 9.6 points and half PPR on 4 receptions. So, and you saw that his yards per target were 14. So, he's being targeted down the middle of the field there. The real question is, does Jalen Hurts kind of rebound from his 123-yard passing game performance last week versus Kansas City? I think they do. I think this is going to be a really fun game. I don't think this is going to be like a squash matchup by any means by the Philadelphia Eagles. I think the Rams, especially with having a second target there in Devonta Adams, are going to really make this challenging for Philadelphia to the point where Jalen Hurts is going to have to air it out. So all those people who have been frustrated about A.J. Brown, all the A.J. Brown managers, the Devonta Smith managers, the Goddard managers, Jonathan raises his hand like, yes, present. Going to roll with that situation there. I'm going to go with Goddard. I didn't
think Jalen Hurts had to do anything last week. I mean, I felt like they were killing the clock and taking a knee early in the first quarter. Like the Chiefs were just shooting themselves in the foot, playing terrible. So he didn't need to throw from 100+ yards,
So I'll get to earlier questions as soon as I get to these current questions. Jeremy says, didn't intend the Springer reference, but I love it. Speaking of assholes, I feel like one because Glitch is like, Springer is gone. Mando gets the Jerry reference. He says, Moggs is like, I think Jerry's dead too.
Yeah, he died a few years ago.
Oh my God. What the?
You didn't know that? You didn't know that? Okay, yeah. He died a few years ago.
I don't know why I'm laughing. That's not funny. I feel so horrible. I'm laughing at being an asshole because I did not put that together. So sorry, Jerry Springer loved ones. I did not know. So stop it. All right, Mando full PPR. Start 2 running backs, 1 flex. Stevenson, Swift, Hampton, DK, or Jennings. Crazy for leaning Swift, Robinson, and DK.
I mean, Stevenson looked good. I watched tape last week. I think there was so much Henderson talk that he was like, "Hey, don't forget, I'm here in New England. I'm the number 1 guy." I mean, he caught. What was his stats last week? I think even his catching was 70 yards or something.
Yeah, I think it was something like that. So for me, the flex is definitely DK. That's the one that I feel kind of most confident in. amongst that group.
Yeah, I would roll with DK also. Actually, to be honest with you, I don't think you're crazy for leaning Swift, Stevenson, or DK. There's nobody in terms of competition for the touches there for Chicago. The Cowboys, in terms of the rushing. Let me pull this up really quickly. Apologies for not having this committed to memory, but there's always next week for that. The Cowboys, where do they rank here? They actually, as the defense are concerned, allow the 10th fewest rushing yards on the season. In terms of rushing yards average, they are 19th in rushing yards average with 4.1 allowed. In terms of touchdowns on the season, coincidentally, they don't give up a lot of yards. Their rushing averages, allowed is not, mind-blowing, but they're tied for first in most rushing touchdowns allowed with 4. So, what are we talking about here? Do we care about the yardage or we care about the scores here? We care about the 6 points. So I would go with Swift in this situation, Stevenson and DK. So I think we're all on the same page there. Jamie in the chat. What's up, Jamie? I play in a league where I can flex a kicker. Who should I start? Cameron Dicker, Little, Booty. Stop it. Is there a kicker? That should tell you all you need to know as far as. Go ahead, Jonathan.
I think I know because I think he's talking about the Patriots wide receiver. So he's saying the 2 kickers or Booty.
Oh God! Wow. Oh, so
no,
wow.
He's saying he can flex them, and he's picking. Got the 3.
I got it. I need to drink more.
I feel like that was on purpose. The Dicker Little Booty, in that order. I know what you're doing there, Jamie. I know what you're doing.
We've been done.
I think the potential high scoring nature here for this Jags Texans is going to make me lean Little here for Jacksonville. So I would go there with the fact that
maybe you could have shifted Little to the first one. That
Little
would have made
Dicker,
it a little bit more.
Little Dicker Booty. And of course, I go with the
a little bit funnier.
I go with Little, which I don't know what that says. That's kind of that. Anyhow, we're gonna go away from that and let's get to
publicly shaming
publicly shaming myself here. Love it. This is always self-deprecating. Gotta love it. Colby Conway in the chat. D-Hop is the Darnold movie. Stop it. This is not a serious question.
How is it not a serious question?
It's a serious question. D-Hop had a good
scored in two games. He's getting looked at in the red zone. So you're relying on a touchdown, but yeah.
He's gotten 4 targets also in 2 games. So it's not like it's been like consistent target volume going his way. Mooney came back from injury last week. Let me pull this up really quickly.
What did he do for you?
I'm going to say he did nothing. But Ray McLeod has had on the season more situations. Mooney came back, 4 targets, 2 receptions, 20 yards. Man, I think
I'll take D-Hop.
D-Hop, especially in the game that has the highest over-under of the week in this game. I think I'm going to go DeAndre Hopkins.
D-Hop is still a clean route runner. He's very good at getting off the line. So if you're in the red zone, he's getting looked at and he's taken seriously. So it's a risk because you need a touchdown, but I think D-Hop is going to be a red zone threat.
Will is in the chat here. He says, best ball PPR league, the scores return yards, Wicks, Booty, Turpin, Brown. I have Booty right now, but I'm liking Turpin here versus the Bears. He's the highest scoring wide receiver on the waiver wire thanks to return yards. I gotta be honest with you, I am not well versed in return yardage situations. Jonathan, or do you have any preference here for the return yards? PPR though, I would go Wicks just because of the PPR nature in the Green Bay passing offense. That if they're going to key in on Romeo Doubs, I think Wicks is the primary beneficiary for receptions here. So that's why I'm going to roll with Devontae Wicks here. The return yards situation here, Turpin, I couldn't really speak to that, to be perfectly honest with you. Jonathan, what about you?
Yeah, return yardage isn't something that I was prepping today. I'm still really intrigued as to see whether Booty can get more work than he did last week. I mean, we saw it week one, like how much he was used. So I'm still really intrigued to see if he can. I know that he wasn't used much last week, but I'm really intrigued to see if they can get him involved more this week.
All right, let's get into. Go ahead.
Cool. You look like you were trying to find your zen before you answered that question.
I was.
Big deep breath.
I did.
You paused, you know.
I want to be completely transparent with the people, and I'm trying to, like, as I'm like taking that pause, I'm like, let me think about return yards. Let me think about return yards. Let me think about return. I play in 0 leagues that have return yards, and much like Jonathan was saying, I was not prepping for return yardage. But folks, if you're in the chat here and you play in a lot of leagues that have return yards, I promise you, let me know at Jorge B. Edwards over on Twitter. I will be prepped and ready for some return yardage discussions. And quite frankly, now that the fact that there's been a couple of questions already with return yards so far this season, I think I will be.
Felt like you were trying to be one with yourself before you answered that question.
I was really
Aaron Rodgers on an ayahuasca trip or something like that.
Kind of, yeah. I was really asking myself, am I really doing this? Am I really considering being prepped for return yardage questions next week? The answer is, yeah.
I would go with Turpin. I'll tell you why. Antonio Gibson is the return man in New England there, and Turpin is definitely always used in the return game. So, you know, look out. It's all about usage, right? So go Turpin.
Well, okay. Well, David is apparently the only one zeroed in on return yardage this week. So
I'm in a league with the return yards as well, so I keep an eye on it.
We have somebody's got you covered here. All right. Before we answer some more start sit questions, and please keep them coming, we will get to them. Let's get into some fantasy flex for the week. All right, so we're going to talk about some players here. Obviously, we're talking about quarterbacks outside the top 12 as well as tight ends. We're going to talk about running backs outside of the top 24 in half PPR, as well as wide receivers in half PPR. And we're just going to talk about things that we like about them, that we don't like about them. So let's compare and contrast. We have 3 of each at each position. Let's compare and contrast what our thoughts are on these players. Most confidence in this week. And Dave, let's start with you here. Do you have more confidence in CJ Stroud, Trevor Lawrence? So CJ Stroud, quarterback 17, Trevor Lawrence, quarterback 15, or Michael Penix, quarterback 16? Their opponents. Stroud versus the Jaguars, Lawrence versus the Texans, and the game we've been discussing a lot through these questions all morning, or Michael Penix versus the Carolina Panthers for fantasy. Who are you rolling with or feel the most comfortable with, and why this week?
CJ Stroud. We've seen his ceiling is quarterback 1 of the week. We've seen that before. He's got the weapons around him. Nick Chubb's playing great to open up the run game so that he can air the ball out. I mean, we talked about Trevor Lawrence and how, he's had 6 seasons to show us he can be elite. Maybe a handful of times he's put up solid QB1 numbers to my memory, but nothing that's reliable. And Penix, man, he's just not playing that great. He's, to be fair, Drake London and Kyle Pitts are his, 1 and 2. So I'm not expecting the Falcons to be winning that game. I think their O-line's a bit poor. He's going to get sacked. So give me CJ Stroud.
To the kicker question, where I said that's not a real question. Jamie apparently thought that my response was funny to that. No, it was the Mooney D-Hop question. That's not a real question. Moggs with team Dicker down. That is that like a softball? It's come on, man. That's there's no kicker name down, so I can't even. Whatever. Anyhow, sorry, I got a little sidetracked. ADHD kicking in. What can I say, folks? You're not trusting Penix though against Carolina. That's I'm kind of curious as to that. Jonathan, would you concur here with CJ Stroud versus the Jaguars, or Jaguars as you would call it across the
Jaguars? Yeah. There's a U in there.
Jaguar. If anyone gets that reference,
it's like yeah, exactly. Yeah. Aluminium. Do you call it? Is it still aluminium over in the UK?
Aluminium. Aluminium.
Yeah, aluminium. But that one, I think there's there's some reason as to why there's a difference there, because every other element is IUM. So like, why is it aluminum but aluminium? Like everything else, every other element ends in IUM. Anyway, sorry, this is probably not why.
No, I love the pronunciation. No. It's cool. I'm a nerd. I'm a science.
No, dude,
I love it. I love
hearing
aluminium. It sounds so much better than aluminum. But that's just me.
I say here in the States aluminum to avoid conversations, because otherwise get, oh my God, are you from England or something? I'm like, no, you're pronouncing it incorrectly. And let's talk about oregano. What in the hell is oregano? It's oregano. Oregano, people. All right? Pronunciation.
See, we can gang up on you here, Jorge.
You know what? I already told you. I'm
got the two foreigners beating you down.
No, I love aluminium. I think it just sounds beautiful. It's a beautiful sounding word. Oregano. I have never heard that be a point of contention for people who are not from the United States. Oregano has always been like the thing here. Egg glitch is.
And when people try to challenge it and say like, no, you're pronouncing it wrong, I'm like, hey, you're American talking English. I guarantee you the English know how to speak English better than Americans. But
so funny story. So egg glitch is like WTF. I've never heard it that way. Origami.
Oregano. 4 syllables, people. All right, not oregano.
So my boss on Monday last week, he sent an email saying, if you're confused about so-and-so policy or something like this, like email me and we can go over yada, yada, yada. And he sent this to like a bunch of us. And I was reading, like, it was like a forwarded email. So I was like reading the email and I'm like reading this and I'm reading this. And I'm like, this makes zero sense to me. And I replied to the email and I'm like, so I know this was written in English and in parentheses, American. Just to clarify that it wasn't British English, or and yeah, I thought that was funny.
You know, one word I had to stop using in email because no one understands it here. Whilst. I used it all the time. People don't. I'd get people tell me, "What is whilst?" Not even kidding. Not even kidding, man. Like people would say whilst, so I just say while now.
That's funny.
I think that's a British English versus American English thing. Yeah.
Oh, it's definitely. I didn't realize that till I moved here. Like I just assumed whilst was a known thing. Anyway.
In fact, I'm pretty sure with Jonathan over here, with a lot of his articles here at Fantasy Frames, I've seen a bunch of whilsts in the write-up, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to keep it there because I like how it sounds. So that is just if you ever see that in an article,
yeah, go on.
You know it's Jonathan who wrote that one. Obviously, the name is going to be there as well.
Yeah. I do always take the U out of favorite.
No, leave it in there. Leave it in there. I love the twist. It's great.
The ketchup. You guys actually call it ketchup in the UK, don't you, Jonathan?
Yeah.
Do you call ketchup ketchup? Yeah, we call tomato sauce.
Tomato ketchup.
Stop.
Yeah, so we'd use
tomato sauce.
Use tomato sauce or tomato ketchup.
So you know it's funny. My niece, like when she stayed with us for like a week, it was like ant camp. That's what my wife was calling it, and everybody was calling it. I was like, whatever. Love her to death, but is like so annoyingly picky about food. Like I took her to the grocery store. I'm like, okay, like what are your things that you like? And like, do you like this? No. Do you like that? No. She's like very definitive what she likes. Do you like tomatoes? Yeah. Okay. So then I bring her back and like we were cooking dinner and I give her some tomatoes and she was throwing like a fit. Like, I don't like these. I won't eat these. I'm like, well, like this is what is being served. So you're either not going to eat it or you're out of luck here. And like the tears were coming down. Like, I hate tomatoes. I'm not going to do this. Like, it was a huge thing. Like, needs therapy now, is scared of tomatoes, has nightmares of tomatoes, thanks to Uncle Jorge. Anyhow, we're at a family trip this summer at the beach and we're going shopping and like everybody's like, well, what do we need to pick up in the grocery store? So I'm being the cool person. I'm going to be like, I'll go to the grocery store and pick stuff up. And everybody's like, oh, well, your niece and your nephew, they want pasta and red sauce. I'm like, red sauce? What the hell is red sauce? And like, I have the list next to me and I'm like, I'm at the grocery store. I'm like, red sauce. Do they mean tomato sauce? Yes. I'm like, they call it red sauce. Like, yeah.
Sauce?
Why are you calling it red sauce? And they're like, that's what we call it around them. I'm like, do you call it red sauce around them because you just don't want to say it's tomato sauce and have them flip out because they hate tomatoes? And they're like, yes. And I'm like, oh, screw that. As soon as I got back to the house, I'm like, here's your tomato sauce. And I just walked away out of the room and let them deal with the aftermath because that's the kind of asshole I am.
To be fair, ketchup is loaded with, it's like 5% tomato, let's be honest. Salt, sugar, and God knows what the hell's in there.
So, Will, to answer your question, I did get the Mr. Burns reference there from The Simpsons when he lost all his money and he was at the grocery store having the shot for himself. And he also drops in the awesome, hold on, cover your ears. Boom, shakalaka! News, JSN is expected to play today. Great. Just balling with Jay, who, if you're not following on Instagram and YouTube, follow, fantastic artist. He says, wow. I don't know where he's saying wow for me being the...
Is Jorge frozen or is that me?
I think so.
Okay. Think you're frozen for a bit, Jorge.
Yep. No, I definitely had a lot of circles going on here. He says, wow. I don't know if he's saying that because of our talk about all the different foods and pronunciations, or me being the asshole uncle who said, you know what, this is the tomato sauce, and then walked out of the room. Either way, I thought it was funny. But anyhow,
in Belgium, red sauce is like a tomato paste with like a little bit of ground beef.
Everybody's frozen. I'm not frozen. Moggs is in the chat. Hello. Moggs is in the chat. He says, Graham or Gano starting at kicker. That is brilliant. Thank you very much here. He also says, we're a wild breed over here in America.
No comment.
Mr. Scamper, some British English say TH as F, so no thank you.
That depends on where you go. That's less eloquent.
East London.
Wait,
yeah.
hold on. What's an example of that? What's
thank you? He's trying to say
thank you.
Instead of thank you, you say thank you.
Really?
Yeah.
But you go a bit more north as well, where it gets a little bit less.
Careful.
Yeah, it's kind of like an Alabama accent compared to
understood
California or something.
Understood.
No offense.
We don't all sound like we're from Oliver Twist, basically.
Oh my god! All right, let's get back on topic. Thank you very much for indulging us here, folks. And surprisingly, the viewer drop off has not actually occurred because we've been talking about this random stuff other than football. So we hope you've enjoyed our random side note conversations again. Thank you, Jorge, and your ADHD. Andrew in the chat says, updated questions. Start 2: Cooper Kupp, Hollywood Brown, or Terry McLaurin. Thank you for at least putting. Well, actually, you didn't say Terry McLaurin. You just said McLaurin. Thank you for not saying Scary Terry, because as Nate Marcum alluded to last weekend, I will lose my shit to anybody who says
you do get
Terry.
Upset about that.
I get very. That is a horror. Okay, Terry McLaurin is Scary. Excuse me, Scary Terry is Terry. Is it the guy who played for the Dallas Mavericks and then played for the Celtics? That's his nickname. Terry McLaurin or McLaren should be Terry F1 McLaurin. That should be the nickname. Not anybody whose name is Terry shouldn't automatically get the default Scary Terry. That just sounds stupid.
To be fair, the car is a McLaren, so it's not.
I got it, but it's McLaurin sounds closer to McLaren. Okay,
fair enough. Terry is Terry though. So.
You scared the babies. The babies, they're 7. Okay, so they can deal with tomato sauce not being called red sauce. They're just Donald J. Just saying. Anyhow, to answer the question here, I would hold on. He says, Andrew says, I wish more people used whilst in the USFA. That's funny.
Whilst it's whilst.
Sorry, whilst
correctly.
Sorry.
Whilst.
Yes. So if JSN is good to go,
I told you, Jonathan. It's whilst.
Whatever. It's McLaurin for me because of the Mariota funneling targets to him, and that he's going to lock on to McLaurin. And then we talk about Hollywood Brown with the target volume of Cooper Kupp. And one of the concerns, Jonathan, that you brought up earlier was the fact that Cooper Kupp, if JSN is hobbled by injury or God forbid doesn't play, that's to the moon, as the kids say, with Cooper Kupp. Now that we know that JSN is playing, where are you leaning, Jonathan, in terms of like Hollywood versus Cooper Kupp?
I think I'm going Hollywood just because I think I just think I feel more confident in his target share compared to Cup. Obviously, we've seen it jump up a little bit up and down with Cup. It was a fairly quiet week one, wasn't it? And then a little bit better last week. But I think Hollywood will still see plenty of targets. So I think I'm going Hollywood and McLaurin.
Mr. Scamper says, always enjoy the tangents. Thank you. Thank you for appreciating the tangents. Moggs is just shaking his head laughing. That is fantastic. Erika, who's good?
I was just going to say, I think the Chiefs get back on track this week. I don't think they win, don't get me wrong, but they had a close game against the Chargers. Like that first one, I think people made out like the Chargers walked all over them. I'm pretty sure it was a one score victory. So, and in that game, Hollywood Brown, correct me if I'm wrong, has 16 targets.
11, I think.
10?
Something like that, yeah.
Okay, sorry. Thought it was a bit more, but yeah, I thought he had 10 for 16, but anyway, I'll look up later.
You could be right, yeah.
But look, last week they were just played terrible. So I think with Worthy out, obviously, Rashid Rice not coming back for a few more weeks, his only next threat is Juju Smith-Schuster, who I think is not really that going to take that many targets away from him. So I think Hollywood this week and this week alone might put up some serious numbers.
So before we get to Will's comment right here, A-Glitch, I see why you're upset. It's such a better nickname, F1. Thank you, A-Glitch. Come back anytime you want. You want to be a guest on the show on screen, we'll let you be a guest on the show on screen. That's how much I appreciate you. David, I'm just going to not let you glance over the fact that you said you don't think the Chiefs are going to win this week, to which Will says the Chiefs will not start 0-3. Did I hear that correctly? Or
they're technically 0-3 already. They lost the Super Bowl, so they are
0-3.
Come on. Am I wrong or what?
I mean, touche. We got Erika in the chat, who's normally joining us here on the pregame show, but she is taking, when she told me the 2 classes she's taking this semester while we were on screen together, I literally wanted to vomit all over my desk because they sound utterly atrocious, and she is being slammed with homework this week. So totally get it. Well, she'll be back next week, folks. Quick question during her morning homework break. She says, half PPR, Egbuka, JMO, Christian Kirk, or QJ. For me, we've been talking all morning about how impressed we are with Quentin Johnston. So I'm going to roll with him. And then half PPR, Egbuka, although in the next few weeks, if Christian Kirk stays healthy, I think we're going to see an uptick in the productivity of the Houston Texans defense. Jameson Williams is still, unfortunately, more boomer bust for me. Dave, you brought up a couple weeks. Was it last week or in week 1 where you were talking about the floor is 0 for Jameson Williams? And then Nate was like, no, the floor is not 0. So I looked it up. And technically, you both were right, but then both were wrong in the fact that it wasn't like absolute 0. But we saw last year in half PPR scoring, there were several games where Jameson Williams had 0.3 points, 0.5 points. And you know where those points came from? Negative plays in a half PPR. Just anyhow, I'll leave that alone. He says, a quick homework break, half PPR, I had to pick one, Egbuka or QJ. I'm rolling QJ, and what should be a great divisional game here versus the Denver Broncos. Dave, who are you rolling with here this week?
Yeah, I'm going QJ as well. Like Egbuka, I'm just too worried about that snap count if they get it off to a lead. And JMO, like I said, he got over 100 yards in a tutty last week, but that was on 2 targets. So that's not realistic every single week. I forgot Christian Kirk was alive. So that answers that question there. So it's got to be QJ.
Twitch Mog says Erika's got good problems right now. Those are good problems to have. Will says homework shouldn't exist. If the teacher can't teach what needs to be taught during their time, they're not a good teacher. LOL. Erika, you got a lot of love in the chat here.
I tell my kids that every single time. Say, hey, I don't want to see homework here. And they're like, well, we have to do it. I'm like, no, we pay enough money for school that if they can't do it in the 6 hours that's there, it's not my responsibility, man. It's ridiculous. They bring them home, eat into their personal time. That's not how the real world works.
I hear you. Mando with the question. Sorry for not getting to it sooner. We had our aluminium versus tomato sauce tomato paste talk. Apologies. One more start, 2 full PPR. Sutton, Ridley, JMO, or Pollard. I currently have Sutton and Pollard in, but something tells me to put JMO in there. I would put I would put JMO in. I would not play my Titans this week. I would play JMO and Sutton this week. Jonathan, where do you stand on this situation?
Yeah, I think I'm doing the same. I think like the Pollard, he's seeing a lot of work on the ground, but I think I checked earlier. I think he's only seen like one reception. He's only had like one reception so far this year.
I'm gonna pull it up right now.
And like the last 3 years, he's had something like 55 to 65 receptions.
Yeah, one reception for 21 yards, and he's lost a fumble, so that's great.
Yeah, so it's I think that's one of the bigger issues. You're just not seeing those like high quality sort of plays from him because they're not scoring a lot of touchdowns, and he's not seeing work through the air. So his upside is going to be limited. So yeah, I'm going Sutton and James Williams then.
All right. Erika adds on. This is my chug league. Lowest score each week chugs a beer, so need to win this week. Need to win. I'm trying to lose this one. Are you kidding me? What kind of beer am I drinking? I mean, if it's like a high quality beer, or I guess high quality, I'd want to like savor. But
bench
like,
all your players. Just put them all on the bench.
All on the bench. Like if it's Natty Light or something, then yeah, I'm trying to win this week. But if it's like a good chugging beer, I will happily just have some fun because football, it's great. I want to party. Coincidentally, at the fantasy football
kind of stuff, and then the
yeah. Exactly. And then Monday
you guys
comes
big on craft beer over there in Washington. Over here, it's like everything is some bare minimum 8% IPA. Smells like a moist towel.
That is the nicest way you could have put that because I absolutely hate IPAs. Like I can't stand them. They taste disgusting. Give me a good Belgian ale. Give me a good ale. Give me a good lager. I'm happy. My favorite beer is Guinness. I'm a huge stout fan. At the Fantasy Football Expo in Canton, Ohio, which everyone should go to at least once, if not multiple times over here. The Doubletree Hotel is kind of like where people, like a lot of people like to go check into because it's where a lot of us are congregated and there's a bar downstairs. Shenanigans occur, fun times. And everyone around me is either drinking like an IPA or like a summer shandy, which no disrespect to the summer shandies, I'm a big fan, but I can't chug some of these beers. I can chug Guinness like nobody's business. And someone would think like, well, it's hot as hell. It's like 90 degrees and you're chugging Guinness. I'm like, I don't care. It's cool. It's refreshing. I like seeing the nitrogenation. I like seeing the bubbles float to the top, and I can chug Guinness like it's nobody's business. You can call me Landfill from Beer Fest because I will volume chug the fuck out of some Guinness. That's how much I love Guinness beer.
Have you tried Smittix? You ever tried?
I love Smittix. I love Smittix. Yep.
Smittix is more a real Irish beer. Not that Guinness isn't, but a lot more people drink Smittix. I think it's a little bit more palatable as well.
I love Smittix. It's great, not Smithwick's, as some people might say with the spelling over here in the States.
Here's the thing, game changer, get a Smittix with a Guinness head. So you get them to fill it, 3/4, and then you put the Guinness head. So that way you get like a real creamy head on top, but like the not as bold flavor as the Guinness. Game changer. I feel like
there's like an inappropriate joke in there that we just let go over, but which thank God because
real quick Guinness story. Have you ever been to the Guinness factory at all, Jonathan?
I have, but unfortunately I was 17, so I can't.
Gotcha. Okay. So when you go there, you get 2 free beers, right? At the end of the tour, and there's a lot of people who just go there just for a photo. So when we went up there, like especially with the Asian tourists, they just don't really drink Guinness. So they'll take their photo and they'll leave it. My wife got so angry at me because we were there for like 3 hours. I would just wait for someone to take their photo, put it down. You get a fresh beer. By the time you're done, you just got to keep an eye on the tourists who are there just for photos. Dude, I had like 10 free beers. It was fantastic.
Oh my God. Let's see here. Will Power in the chat says the way Erika, I hope you're please watching this. The way Erika drinks beer on the podcast, I don't think she would mind losing. If I were Erika right now, I'd be like, thank you. I would not take that as Erika has a problem joke that we need to address. But like, no, that is hilarious. Mr. Scamper says KC and Titans are excellent in chug leagues. Mr. Scampers goes on to says, you could just call me Landfill too and pretend everything else is normal. Yeah, they didn't call him Landfill too. He's like, maybe you can call me Landfill And remember, guys, have you watched Beer Fest movie? Please
Such
tell
a
me.
great film. I've
It
seen it so many
is.
times. So many times.
Jonathan, yes, please don't let me down.
I don't think I have. No.
Oh man. Dude,
Oh,
you're missing
have you
out.
seen Super Troopers?
I will get that. That'll be my homework for next time I'm on.
Oh, you have to watch
is
BFS.
watching
Fantastic.
That should definitely be some homework versus what Erika is doing right now. It wasn't meant to be an insult to Erika. I know we know.
And
we
the
know.
landfill too was that was a reference to where landfill dies, and then his brother, who's just him, comes in. He's like, "Oh, my brother told me all about you guys, so we can just keep going as if."
No awkward getting to know you phase.
Yeah. I love that part.
Okay, we got Varun in the chat here says quarterback standard: Penix, Wilson, Rodgers, Browning, Stafford. I'm okay with Browning. I gotta be honest with you. I'm all okay with Browning. We talked about how much success he had in good matchups and tough matchups back in 23 when Burrow had that wrist injury. Penix has been looking not great. Wilson had a great game last week. Does he do that against Kansas City? I don't think he does. Rodgers is efficient. He's not like mind-blowing from a fantasy stats perspective. He's always one of those guys who has like multiple touchdowns on the low yardage passing games. Stafford, this is the one where it's like, okay, how much does the Devontae Adams effect increase Stafford's floor versus increasing the floor of the receivers? So by default, I'm going with Browning here, which is something that I think a lot of people might say. What do you have in this Superman cup here? High quality coffee is what I have here. So I'm rolling with Browning. Dave, who are you rolling with in this situation?
Give me Wilson. I loved what I saw last week. He's still got an arm on him. He was throwing multiple bombs, and they were accurate too. I know he got 2 picks. Was it 2 picks?
Let me pull it up right now.
That's what happens when you have to air the ball out, and I'm expecting a shootout tonight.
What about you, Jonathan?
I think I'm going Stafford. My hope is that ends up becoming a high-scoring game where we kind of want all of the sort of fancy pieces. So it's I know it's a tough matchup, but I am probably trying to bet on that just being a high-scoring game. I think with someone like Rodgers, and Stafford, it's really tough because they offer nothing with their legs, and so you're basically hoping for like 250 yards and a couple of touchdowns, which I think Stafford can do in hopefully a pretty high scoring game.
So just to round this all out around the frames, we have one person for Wilson, one person for Browning, one person for Stafford. We've helped absolutely no one in this. So Varun, apologies, but hopefully our rationale makes sense for all the different situations we just talked about. So good luck setting your lineup here. Go with Browning because I'm biased because I'm the one who can press the buttons behind the scene. Anyhow, there we go. We got just spawn with Jay. He's like, go with Russ. Let's go, Russ. Okay. Well, you're dead to me now, Jay. So just letting you know. Will in the chat says, I think tonight the Chiefs are going to win. They push to play Jackson Dart will occur. Will says Browning for me. Will, you're not dead to me right now. So thank you very much, Jay. See, that's how it's done there. I'm just letting you know. But, for future comments and questions, just letting you know there. Anyhow, let's get to the running back position. Just kidding, Jay. Just kidding. Let's talk about 3 running backs. There you go. Let's talk about 3 running backs and what do we like from them from flex options. Again, we're talking about running backs and wide receivers now. Outside the top 24 Fantasy Pros' ECR rankings and half PPR. Ramondre Stevenson, the RB30 versus Pittsburgh. We got Tyler Algier, the RB35 versus Carolina. Then the RB37, Bashal Tutin, Jacksonville taking on the Houston Texans. Jonathan, why do you think people should be happy about Tutin versus Houston this week?
I think obviously with Tank Bigsby leaving, there are very clear opportunities for both of those running backs to carve out a significant workload. And I think we kind of have already immediately seen it with Tutin. I know he only got kind of 2 targets, 2 receptions, but that went for 32 yards and a touchdown. And I think we saw good efficiency on the ground as well. He went 8 for 42 yards, so that's over 5 yards an attempt. So I think it's quite clear that they don't want to give ETN a full sort of like workhorse sort of role and give him sort of like 20 to 25 touches and kind of give him sort of 80% of the work. I think they are going to kind of look to split this up between the two of them. And so I think that Tootin is the perfect sort of he's someone that I would love to have on my bench, not have to play him, but just because I can see his kind of role growing and increasing over the next few weeks, especially if we kind of continue to see this good usage in the passing game.
Just balling with Jay in the chat said, if it's Browning over Russ this week, I owe you a drink. You owe me a Guinness at the expo, just so you know. Moggs is in the chat going back to our Stafford question at the quarterback position. He says he thinks the Rams run game will help Stafford's passing, especially in the red zone. That's a very interesting take. I like that. Drop in the comments more of what your thought process is here. But that's definitely something that we could definitely talk about more. We got Moggs. He also asked the question, Mooney or Wandale in the flex? If it's PPR, it's Wandale for me. What about you, Jonathan?
Yeah, same for me. I think obviously we saw a huge game from Wandale last week, but actually, like, I was just looking up his first week stats as well. There was still a decent amount of targets in the first week as well. And obviously Mooney has been dealing with injury. We haven't seen that any sort of consistency from him. So yeah, I'm going Wandale there as well.
All right, you concur here, Dave, with Wandale over Mooney this week in the flex PPR? Full PPR?
Just got it. I'm going Wandale. I don't trust Mooney.
There we go. All right, let's keep it going here. So Tootin is not highfalutin going against Houston this week, but we're benching him. We're not starting him. No applause for me doing all that rhyming just there. Thank you, Jonathan.
You totally thought of that before.
I did not. That was
down in your notes?
It was not written down.
I can see it in the show notes.
Shut up! It's not in the show. It is not.
Tootin, flutin, joke.
Whatever. That was whatever. Jonathan, for those who missed your take on Tyler Algier versus Carolina, can you maybe repeat for the folks out there listening and watching? I guess both listening and or watching. What are your thoughts on here as far as what makes him a good flex option for people this week?
Yeah, I think so. With him, I would be betting on a positive game script for that. I personally think that they beat Carolina, and over the last couple of weeks, Algier has seen still a sort of healthy amount of work. I think last week it was 16 touches he had in total. They're looking to kind of split up the backfield between both him and Robinson. Obviously, Robinson is the one there, but there's still enough work for Algier in positive game scripts for him to see a good amount of work to be kind of flex worthy. So yeah, he's not someone that I want to start, but I think he is. If you're slightly desperate, then I think he is a good enough play this week.
Well, your thoughts here for Tyler Algier and to what Jonathan was just saying as far as the game script being in his favor there, Dave?
Bijan's obviously proven that he's still the one. I feel like it's going to be game script. I guess depending on the game script, he's really fallen into the end zone a couple of times. The funny thing is when they're on the goal line, they're not really using Bijan. So I do feel you're relying on him falling in the end zone, but it's tough to trust him. I mean, as a RB2 or a flex, but I don't know. I'm not. If you have better options, I prefer stay away from Algier. Not that he's not talented, and he's kind of guy who can break off for an 80-yard run. Wouldn't shock you, but it's too high risk.
Okay, so
not week 3.
So let's say you have this situation where you have to start one, Algier or Bashal Tootin. Who would you rather start?
Okay, I'm probably leaning just Algier there, but it's pretty close. I don't think there's a clear-cut winner there.
All right. Willpower in the chat saying Little Booty has been tooting indefinitely and needs to use the bidet.
I don't know if there's enough characters in your team name to call it that, but
exactly. Character limit on sleeper. I love it. Let's talk about Ramondre Stevenson, and we talked about we touched on the his performance last week. 11 attempts, 54 yards, 4.9 yards per carry, 5 targets, 5 receptions, 88 yards. Wait a second. I thought this was supposed to be Travion Henderson. I thought this is why people were drafting Travion Henderson so much. And all of a sudden, Ramondre is like, oh, I can do this. Watch
to be fair, there was one wheel route he took for about 55, 60 yards, something like that. So
okay, so it wasn't like a compilation of receptions and whatnot. It was one big play that kind of led
one big play. Then he got 4 catches for about 20, 25 yards, which is still not bad. I mean, considering he's not really a pass catching back, everyone, when you think of Ramondre Stevenson, you think of a north-south runner, right? So, I'll take a sprinkling of, 4 catches for 30 odd yards or whatever. So,
yeah. So like we go very much to your point, we go back to 2021, he had 18 targets, 14 receptions. You go to 2022, he had 69 receptions. You go to 2023, 38, 24, 33. But he's, off to a good start with 7 so far this year. So that is definitely something to pay attention to. Let's get into I first of all, I just want to say thank you to everyone in the chat who's just making it so much fun this morning. You all are the reason why we do this. You all are the reason why we get up early each and every week to do this and do this for as long as we do, because one, we appreciate your support. 2, it's just a lot of good stuff here. Wow. Okay. A glitch too far. But funny. Too far, but it's funny.
I'm gonna have to go to the comments.
Okay, let's get into the wide receiver discussion here. DJ Moore versus Keenan Allen versus Romeo Doubs. Smash Money and Mirage question right here. It's Keenan Allen, and there's not even any reason to think otherwise if I had to pick one of these people as one of my flex options this week. Dave?
Yeah, Keenan Allen. I love Keenan Allen. I was watching the Chicago game. It was a lot of garbage time work, which still counts for fantasy. I get that. But I don't think the Bears are going to be losing by, 30, 40 points every single week. So Dobbs, I can't safely put him in there as an option. I mean, we see his potential. Last week he got 3 touchdowns for 100+ yards, right? But that's not happening every week.
Are you going to take that, Jonathan, or what are you doing? What are your thoughts here with the Dobbs slander by Dave?
Yeah, I mean, like obviously he is a step below those two, but I think he's a decent flex play this week if you need someone. I think that obviously with Reed going down, Dobbs has been fairly consistent, but just really unspectacular. It's kind of but he keeps popping up with touchdowns. He's often who Love goes to in situations where he's he needs someone on 3rd down, and the Browns have been pretty good against the run. So I mean, they may not need to throw that much, but I think that obviously with Reed out, it's one less person in that rotation that has kind of frustrated fantasy managers so much. So I do think Dobbs is a decent option today.
All right, folks. Let's not forget, for those who still have start and sit questions, or maybe want to get more opinions or thoughts on the start and sit questions they've already had in today's show, we got Andy Behrens in 12 minutes joining us here from the deepshot.com for our last segment here at Fantasy and Frames, his pregame show. Quickly, let's get into the tight end position before we get into Fantasy Focus. Our last segment here, which for those who've seen the movie My Girl, you will have an appreciation for the audio drop because I thought it was funny and I have a dark sense of humor. So that's just me. Let's get into Henry, tight end 16 versus Pittsburgh. Mark Andrews versus tight end 14 versus the Lions. And Chig Okonkwo, tight end 20 versus the Colts here. Dave, let's start with you because you're not ashamed of just speaking your mind very bluntly, which that's what I love about you, my friend. Mark Andrews, what the hell is going on with Mark Andrews?
It's real tough for me. I like Mark Andrews. So actually, a little side note. So my daughter has type 1 diabetes, and so does Mark Andrews. He's got this organization which is really cool. People should support it. It supports research for type 1 diabetes. But so I'm a fan of him for that. But he's been awful of late. Like I said before about Hopkins, I think Hopkins is getting the looks that Mark Andrews used to get. So I'm not starting Mark Andrews unless I'm absolutely desperate. There's a bunch of other options you could probably find off the waiver wire. So we were talking about a floor of 0. That's Mark Andrews.
So the Colts that is this week. Excuse me. Let me pull up the Lions stats. The Lions allow the 8th fewest fantasy points per game to the tight end position with 8.7. So that's already not going in Andrews' favor. Jonathan, we talked about D-Hop earlier. We talked about potential, in the chat, I saw that people were talking about the potential for Hopkins, opening up things for Rashad Bateman. I mean, this just seems like a bad matchup, one in general, for Mark Andrews. And given the fact that the performance just hasn't been there, I mean, is he a firm sit on your bench or this week at the tight end position?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you can you've seen over the first couple of weeks that it's basically been Zay Flowers and then kind of a sprinkling of sort of everyone else, but that everyone else hasn't actually included Mark Andrews. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of getting to the point where he's probably droppable, and with Isaiah likely coming back over the next couple of weeks, I think he's someone that I'm going to be fairly interested in as soon as he's back, because there are going to be opportunities for someone else. It's just the issue is that that's all being spread around like 2, 3, 4 players. But yeah, no, I'm certainly not playing Andrews if I can help it.
We joked about it, but like the Kyle Pitts thing right now, if I have Kyle Pitts and Mark Andrews, I'm putting Pitts over Mark Andrews.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
All right. Let's talk about Chigakonkwo here. Chigakonkwo here versus the Indianapolis Colts. Going back to the Colts, the fantasy point allowance here. The Colts allow the 10th fewest points per game to the tight end position here with 9.1. We talked about Tony Pollard and his rushing attempts, but the lack of receiving work, which was one of the selling points of him in the offseason, just the fact that he was such a dual threat, last year, his time in Dallas, and then for some reason things have not been clicking. We've seen Tajay Spears is off the injury report, and so my concern here for Tony Pollard and Tony Pollard managers is the fact that last year when he signed with the Titans, a lot of concern was that, well, Tajay Spears is there. He played well the year before. They're going to eat into each other's workload. They're going to cannibalize the fantasy production. And then we saw just the exact opposite, where it was Tony Pollard dominating rushing attempts, all the metrics you want, and Tajay Spears took a back seat. Now Tony Pollard has been slow out the gate here. Tajay Spears is coming back. Do we see the trend from last year, or do we see Tajay Spears, eating into Pollard's workload, as well as his receiving upside going forward? Does that potential hurt, concern you there, David?
No, I'm not thinking he's going to take over as lead back. All he's doing is just stealing from Pollard, So yeah, I don't know. He's had his third year in the league, fourth year in the league. I mean, I'm sorry, but as a running back, if you can't prove it after 3 years that you can be the guy, it's not going to happen. And he's had multiple opportunities to be the one over there, and just he's just an average change of pace running back.
Will in the chat says, Fannin, Juwan Johnson, even Brenton Strange are better than Andrews right now and probably rest of season. I don't disagree with that, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Whoa, we got a surprise. Let's confirm this real quickly. Yeah. Premature playing of breaking news. Cover your ears.
Boom shakalaka!
Juwan Jennings out per willpower, and then Purdy out as well. Let's get confirmation on that. While we're doing that, can you guys?
I've got here Jennings listed as questionable still, and Purdy out.
All right, let's let me pull up the good old interwebs and find out what's going on. Juwan. Okay, you guys maybe speak to Hunter Henry versus Pittsburgh this week, Jonathan.
Yeah, Hunter Henry. I mean, he had such a good first week compared to the second week that it was kind of like we were saying about Cortland Sutton. Like, which is the outlier? Is it week 1 when he had 8 targets and 60 yards, or is it last week when he had 3 targets and 9 yards? Look, there are hopefully better options for you than Hunter Henry. I think some of them were just put up in the chat. People like Fannin and Juwan Johnson and Brenton Strange, I think, are all sort of better options. But equally, I'm someone that does kind of believe in Drake May, and I think there are going to be plenty of opportunities in the red zone for someone like Hunter Henry. But I just think it's going to be a lack of consistency.
All right, I do not see confirmation yet on Johnson or Purdy. So as soon as we get that confirmation,
Purdy's out. I got confirmation on Purdy, but it looks like Johnson's still questionable. Schefter just reported.
I just got the.
Yeah, Schefter reported Juwan Jennings listed as questionable for today's game. Hold on, ankle injuries. Will not play and will be out. Okay, no. They're both out. They're both out. Schefter just reported.
Unreal. I mean, Mac Jones, is he in line for another day? Because last week he was leaning on Juwan Jennings. Does he have a repeat performance in week 3? Conversely, what does this mean for Ricky Pearsall, and what should Ricky Pearsall managers be feeling right now, David?
Good. You've got your number 1 receiver there, so he's going to have to look for him. He's got no choice. Yeah, I think it's going to more so affecting Pearsall. It's going to be the McCaffrey show.
That's a very good point. That's a very good point there. Man, that is crazy. See Moggs in the chat. Niners are in shambles. If Jones puts up numbers and gets wins, maybe it's because of the Shanahan system here. I don't disagree. Shanahan has always been good at coaching up everybody. So, we all heard the narrative last week as far as, well, now we're probably going to see what
except for one game that stands out.
Okay, fair enough. Okay,
it's 28-3. That's no great coaching.
That's not him. That was
really Shanahan. That was Shanahan calling that. They were throwing the ball 28-3 down. Up, sorry.
All right. Let's see here. Let's see. San Francisco has the easiest strength of schedule based on last year's record. Well, it sounds like they're going to need it because things aren't exactly looking too good here. All right, let's get into our last segment here on the Fantasy and Frames pregame show. Again, for all you My Girl fans out there, you will definitely get this reference.
And where is his glasses? He can't see without his glasses.
Did you guys get that reference is the question. Jonathan, did you get
we did. How old are you, Jonathan? You might be a little bit too young.
I'm 30. How old am I? 32.
32. It might be a little bit too young for you.
Okay.
My girl was big back in the day.
Yeah, it was from a funeral scene. Let's just put it like that. So for those who get that reference and think it's funny, please give me credit. For those of you who think it's in poor taste, I don't really want to hear from you. But let me know either way. All right, so we're going to talk about all these different games. We're going to start from the highest in terms of over-unders and work our way down. So let's talk about tomorrow night. Let's talk about Lions and Ravens. We kind of touched on the situation with Mark Andrews in the tight end position. We talked about DeAndre Hopkins and how well he's been performing on limited targets, but he's still been one of the more well-performing wide receivers behind Zay Flowers. The Lions, though, we saw kind of a return to action. We saw a return to normalcy for Detroit last week. It's like, hey, we have Amon-Ra St. Brown. Let's funnel him the ball. Hey, we got a deep threat in Jamison Williams. Let's get him the ball. Are we expecting more of the same this week? This game is at Baltimore. We all have seen the well-documented home road splits between home and away for Jared Goff. Are we expecting here, Jonathan, a repeat? I mean, obviously Vegas is, right? 53.5 over under. Is there any reason for concern, though, from your perspective, that Jared Goff may not be having, as successful a week as he had last week?
I mean, I don't think we should bet on performances like last week every week. But I think going forward, it's going to be closer to that than week one. And I think if anything, last week shows us like how much we should be avoiding the Packers defense with all of our fantasy players, considering like how good the Lions were last week compared to week one. So yeah, I think, is it going to be the same as last week? Probably not, but equally, I'm not. It's not as if I have concerns that it's gonna plummet. I think for me, the things that I'm kind of looking at this game are like, it's someone like Jameson Williams that, can we see any more kind of obviously we've already sort of spoken about it a little bit, any sort of more like consistent production rather than it just coming down to kind of one or two big plays, just so that we have a bit more confidence going forward.
David, outside of Zay Flowers, is there any? And I want you to be completely honest here. And I want to stress the word confident, like super confident, not like I guess I'm playing him, but like confident. In terms of the receiving options here for Baltimore, is there anybody that you're super confident in starting other than Zay Flowers?
No, it's Zay Flowers at wide receiver. I mean, we've already spoken about Hopkins, but yeah, to your point, that's a little bit of a crapshoot because his floor is 0. Obviously spoke about Mark Andrews, not touching that. I think Isaiah Likely's still out, right?
Yes.
Yeah, he's still out. So no, there's no one there other than Zay that he's going to constantly put up numbers, which is shocking because Lamar's been playing great.
All right, let's get into
which is why I kind of think like Likely, if you've got a spare spot on your bench and you can throw him in there, then I really like picking up Likely because we've seen good production from him before.
No, exactly. I mean, he was a toe from helping to win the game for Baltimore versus Kansas City last year and week one. Let's talk about the next game, which has the second highest over under, which I am shocked that it has the second highest over under here out of all these games. The Dallas Cowboys going up to the Windy City of Chicago with a 49.5 over under. Javonte Williams, I think, is in line for another good game this week. We look at the Bears. They allow the 7th most rushing yards on the season. In terms of rushing yards, rushing yard average, they're allowing a 5.3 yards per carry average. That is ridiculously good. So I feel like the Bears are in a good spot to kind of, or I should say the Dallas Cowboys are in a good spot to, help out fantasy managers who have the Javonte Williams, and even those who have Miles Sanders. They could be in line for a good situation there in terms of running the ball against Chicago.
He's had a resurgence, right? Miles Sanders more. I mean, Javonte Williams doesn't shock me as much. I'm a little bit surprised, but Miles Sanders has been pretty effective.
Would you flex Miles Sanders this week, given the matchup here against Chicago here, Jonathan? Obviously roster dependent, but
yeah, I would try not to if I can, just because I think, as we've seen, I think like Javonte Williams is going to take the vast majority of the work there. But this is the kind of game, I think I mentioned it earlier, where I kind of just want as many pieces from this game as possible, because I think it's, you look at the these two teams from last week and look at what the Lions did and look at what the Giants did. I'm hoping for the same with all these players.
Dave, what are your thoughts on George Pickens and his acclamation to the Dallas Cowboys offense so far this year?
Look, the talent is there, and he's really opening up lanes for CeeDee Lamb because you still have to respect Pickens as a quality receiver. I am a little concerned about the volume he's getting. I mean, I think he scored for the first time last week, which is great, but we had a lot higher expectations for George Pickens than what he's putting up, in the first 2 weeks.
And I think this is kind of potential for a get right game, though, for Pickens, given the fact that the secondary is kind of banged up here for Chicago. So one thing that Drew Scott, who does our Fourth and Frames podcast, one of the things he was looking up on Fantasy Points Status Suite, which is a great resource, by the way, out there, folks, is the different types of routes that wide receivers run and where they find more fantasy success, depending on the route that they run. And so, one of the things that we've always associated with George Pickens is being that vertical down the field person who gets those contested targets and those jump balls in the end zone. Coincidentally, one of our other podcasters and writers, Rhett Manuel, did a Dynasty target piece on George Pickens a few years ago, and it was like, George Pickens is more than just a deep ball wide receiver. He can do multiple things. He can run routes. He can do X, Y, and Z. But then we saw for the few seasons that in Pittsburgh, that's not what they were having him doing. He was to basically go down the field, deep ball guy. This year, though, in Dallas, they've actually been seeing George Pickens running a lot more of these horizontal routes, kind of doing what CeeDee does, to be honest with you, just running all over the field, doing different things. And so in terms of regression, there is the potential there for George Pickens to see a kind of an uptick in production going forward. Let me pull up the fantasy stats right now.
I really like him this week.
You a big fan of Pickens this week?
Yeah, last week we saw him with 9 targets and 5 for 68 and a touchdown. It was, I think he's going to be a player where, yes, he's the 2, but actually he's seeing more production than he did last year, just because the passing volume is so much higher than it ever was in Pittsburgh. So yeah, I feel fairly confident over Pickens this week.
Welcome, honorary member to the Fantasy and Frames family, Mr. Andy Behrens from thedeepshot.com. How you doing, Andy?
I'm doing well. I appreciate it. I came in on a George Pickens recommendation, and I just want to underscore that. Man, it would take a lot for me to rest anybody to not start anybody involved in that Bears-Cowboys game today.
Nice. We got A Glitch in the chat here saying, "Whoa, Andy, obviously a fan." So yeah. So before we continue on with more of the fantasy football questions, we had a highly contested debate on word pronunciation here at the 10 o'clock hour, 10:30 part of the show. And getting as Jonathan, which I don't think you two have met Jonathan, Andy, Jonathan.
Hello, Jonathan.
Jonathan is over in the UK. He's our furthest away fantasy and framer. We were talking about the word aluminum, how we pronounce it in the States and how it is pronounced aluminium.
Yeah. They give it a whole other syllable, right? Yeah.
It's because how it's spelled, but yeah.
So pro aluminium or pro aluminum there, Andy, if you had to pick?
I think it's fine that there are regional differences in pronunciation. I'm a little bit partial to aluminium, though.
Yeah,
I kind of like the way that flows.
There's flair to it.
Yep, definitely. Clearly, he says big fan. So yes, you can always expect Andy here on the Fantasy and Frames pregame show at 11:30 to ending. So thank you very much, Andy, for joining us. One of the things you were talking about in week 1 was Olamide Zaccheaus and how much the Chicago Bears just love him, and how the fantasy community wants to make Luther Burden the guy here. And let's pump the brakes. Like, I'm sure he'll have his day, right? But right now, that's not the case. We look at the target volume this year. However, you have Roma Dunze leading the way in targets, and then you have Zaccheaus. And then DJ Moore after that. If you're in a deep league where you have multiple flexes, what are your thoughts on Zaccheaus? Is he a startable asset for you, or is he still somebody that you're kind of like, from a real football perspective, great, but from a fantasy perspective, still not somebody I'm considering, even like if I have to roll multiple flexes in my league?
I will say they came out last week. It didn't ultimately work out, but they came out intending to feed the ball to DJ Moore. So I don't think, I don't want people to feel like DJ Moore is never going to have a day. And it's not as if, Roma Dunze is just going to catch a touchdown a week and he's going to finish the season with like, Jamar Chase 2024 numbers or anything like that. Like he's actually had a little bit of an up and down season. It's just that the highlights have been so good and he's finding the end zone that we're all fully in on him at this point. But if there was one player, and again, I know I notice it because I follow the Bears closely, I follow the Chicago media closely. There was just a wild disconnect between what was actually being reported, what beat reporters were saying literally every day about who was popping in Bears camp, and what the sort of national fantasy narrative was. It was truly never Luther Burden. So I do think that not only does Zacchaeus have ongoing value, it's not going to be limited to like a month or 2 months or something like that. They're not just easing Luther Burden in. They just actively love Olamide Zacchaeus. And that's not my fault, just the messenger here, but they really do love him. And he's going to continue seeing the field. And more to the point, like Caleb loves him. Caleb shouts him out all the time, did throughout the summer. So that's a real thing. I still think Luther Burden is really good, and he's probably going to have his day down the road. And he's one injury away from being able to slot in somewhere. But I don't think that the Zacchaeus thing has got to the point where we'd be comfortably playing him over DJ Moore, who's still a great player. And they were trying to find him last week. It just didn't, things became Roma Dunze's week, and it was, things snowballed, and they got beat by like 105 points or something. It was terrible. So we'll see what happens this week. That certainly pass volume is going to be there for everyone. I view Zacchaeus more as somebody that we're going to be playing during, once we get into the buys, he's going to be a decent player to slot in, somebody who is going to get targets each week.
Very nice. So another piece of Bears news on the defensive side of the ball, TJ Edwards is out. So for all you IDP junkies out there, take him out of your lineups. And consider putting in Noah Sewell out of Oregon. 13 total tackles on the year, 9 solo, 4 assisted. Has been playing very well. Has been outperforming Tremaine Edmonds at the linebacker position for fantasy managers. So just remember to take TJ Edwards out and put Sewell in if he is available on your team's waiver wire. Let's go now to Broncos and Chargers, the third highest over under with 45.5. The fact that the yardage has been there for Keenan Allen, for Quentin Johnston, for Ladd McConkey, has been so impressive. I was recalling a few seasons ago where Justin Herbert finished as like a top 5 or like a top 10 fantasy quarterback, like something really, really high, which with somebody who didn't have the rushing floor as he did to finish so high was just was amazing if you're a Justin Herbert fan. But a lot of people out there in fantasy land, they're a little nervous about Ladd McConkey because the touchdowns have been there. But if you look at the targets, you look at the receptions, all double digits for all 3 of these wide receivers. Can you maybe just assure the fantasy managers that out there, don't press the panic button on Ladd McConkey just yet?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great offense. I feel like there was also with the Chargers, some of this is connected to people assuming that any offense that involved, Harbaugh, Greg Roman was just going to want to run the ball like 40 or 45 times a game. And I'm sure there's going to be games where they run the heck out of it. But man, this is a really well-designed offense with a great quarterback who can certainly support multiple starting quality fantasy receivers. McConkey's great. He's going to continue to get his. He's gotten his to this point in the season that, if it's a problem at all, I mean, I actually feel like Keenan Allen might be the slightly larger problem than Quentin Johnston, who is a little bit, I like the way that they've used Quentin Johnston, especially week 1. Like, let's give Q some easy targets that he can actually catch instead of making everything like a deep downfield, opportunity to drop another pass. But Keenan Allen looks exactly like Keenan Allen. And I think it just sort of, raises the floor for this offense. Herbert's been great, but I wouldn't I wouldn't worry about McConkey. I might regret the fact that I took him over JSN if I did that, but otherwise I wouldn't really regret the McConkey pick.
Dave, so you were kind of a little bit concerned from that perspective, from the draft capital invested in McConkey earlier, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm going to be the opposite and say you should be worried about Lad McConkey. You know, just like Bruce Willis in The Sixth Sense, he's just realized he's a ghost. That's what McConkey is right now. Okay, I mean, he is the 2A 2B with Keenan Allen right now. Well, I mean, maybe you'd want to call, Q and them like equal, but you got Quentin Johnson probably off the waiver wire, and he's putting up better numbers than McConkey right now. Justin Herbert's a deep ball thrower. He likes the post routes. He loves Keenan Allen getting those little 5-10 yard dink and dunks. And I think we saw last year Lad McConkey was a one-man band. He was doing it all. He doesn't really have to do it now. So I just don't know what his definitive role on this Chargers team is now.
The interesting thing is going to be whether we see consistency from Quentin Johnson now, because it's been 2 good weeks, but we're still very early in the season. So is that actually going to lead to consistency, or are we going to look in like 8-10 weeks time and say, oh, do you remember when Quentin Johnson had those huge 2 games and then disappeared? So we'll see.
I would say that his path to consistency is if it looks like it did in week 1, where those weren't like last year Quentin Johnston routes necessarily, right? They weren't asking him to do like crazy stuff downfield that he's not always been great at. They were just running like shallow crossers for him, and he, easy catches, easy opportunities for him. I think if they settle into that, it's gonna be pretty good for him. And maybe to your point, it's gonna take away a little bit from McConkey. But if he settles in at like 6 or 7 targets a week, everybody else can be fine.
One of the things I was not anticipating this year for both of these teams out of the AFC West was that PFF would grade the Los Angeles Chargers at this point in the season as having the best graded coverage / secondary in the league, and the Broncos having the 7th worst. That was definitely not on my bingo card. And so now you look at the situation here for Troy Franklin, who had the beginning of his coming out party this season last week versus Indianapolis. We look at Cortland Sutton and some of his struggles this season. Are we concerned here for either of these receiving options heading into this matchup versus Los Angeles, or do you think maybe the fact is that the pass rush might be impacted by Khalil Mack and him missing some weeks, and so therefore there's going to be more pressure put into the secondary for the Chargers where the Broncos can take advantage of, or is that overthinking it too much, Andy?
Well, I think the Chargers defense is pretty legit, and I think they are a completely respectable start in fantasy this week. I also kind of think that, I don't know, I'm not a huge Bo Nix guy. I mean, I think Bo Nix is fine. I thought he got a little bit overrated in fantasy, and I think he was probably going in a range where he didn't necessarily need to go. And I still think he's a little bit. There's 2 or 3 balls a game that are just regrettable throws and often result in interceptions. And he'll try to give you the ball a little bit, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Chargers get a couple of takeaways today. I always hate to play the game where you have to go like 2 or 3 steps and say, well, because this guy is out, it's going to impact this thing, which is going to impact this other thing. I mean, maybe it happens, but that's really a leap of logic that is, there's 1,000 variables in the NFL. So I hate to go that far. I'm kind of a buyer in the Franklin breakout. I was very impressed last week because that was not only, there's the big play that was the result of just, hey, 2 former college teammates and, oh, Troy's down there somewhere, I'm going to chuck it. And it was great. It flipped the field. But also a lot of designed, like, just first read targets for Franklin, like that, and that all syncs up with the summer buzz that we were hearing about him too, which I found pretty easy to dismiss because there were too many other Broncos receivers that we were interested in. But that now seems very real. So I don't think I would. I don't know if I just added him from the wire and I spent a decent chunk of fab for him. I think I'd be looking to roll him out this week.
All right, so fun question for you then. If you had to flex one, okay, would you start Troy Franklin or Alec Ayomenor from the Tennessee Titans this week?
If we're asking me, that's gonna be Franklin.
Okay.
I still think pass volume is going to be pretty low for Tennessee. Also, like that might the touchdown that Cam Ward threw might be the worst ball that he's
worst ball across the field. That oh my god.
Yeah.
In fact, you feel more ashamed for the defense for letting that go and not getting picked off in the end zone. To your point about Troy Franklin and Bo Nix and the college dynamic, like one of the things coming out of that pre-draft process that I was really interested in is like just what exactly is the skill set requirement in Oregon? Like what are the things they look at for the quarterback situation? And one of the things I saw was from Bo Nix is that a lot of short to intermediate passes, a lot of highly graded metrics there. And then what is one of the things that you really liked from Troy Franklin coming out of Oregon? A lot of yards after the catch. And so a lot of like short passes to Troy Franklin and then Troy Franklin taking it upfield. So to alluding to your point as far as that deep play last week, but a lot of the rest of it is a lot of like just athleticism on Troy Franklin's part. So I don't think it's a fluke given what we were seeing last week. Jonathan, we were bringing up the Cortland Sutton situation last week. He had 61 yards on 9 targets, versus Tennessee, but then had, 4 targets, 1 reception for 6 yards. Like, who's the real Cortland Sutton here, Jonathan?
And it's really hard to say. I'm, as someone that has invested a fair bit in Cortland Sutton, I'm hoping it was the first week is the real one. I think that there should be enough opportunities there to go around to give Cortland Sutton enough. And we kind of saw towards the back end of last year that he was seeing fairly consistent target numbers. So I'm hoping that it's last week was just an outlier, and I think we should hope for a bit of a bounce back this week.
All right, let's go to the Sunday night matchup because I am very intrigued that this has a 45.5 over under, and I wonder if that's a lot of recency bias from this game last week versus the Giants versus the Cowboys.
Real quick, what do you backfield in Denver? Sorry to interrupt. What are we doing there? I mean, how confident are we in JK? I mean, there's 3 decent running backs there. I mean, are you confidently playing JK? He seems like he's the one, but I wouldn't say it's a clear one.
What are your thoughts, Andy?
I think Dobbins is playing very well. Is the obvious, certainly early down preference. Like, I mean, Harvey's got one really nice play to his credit this year, and it's been quiet other than that. And the biggest problem for him is not even Dobbins. It's all these bidet touches, right? Like I mean, he cannot afford to give up like 20-30% of the snaps to anyone else, because Dobbins, while healthy, is going to have his role. And again, I think Dobbins looks really good, and all of the all the under the hood numbers, if you want to look at yards after contact so far, you want to look at missed tackles so far, it all looks exactly like last year. And he was a good player when healthy last year, and he's been exactly the same good player this year. So I don't think any of this Dobbins stuff is going away.
Let's talk about somebody who may not be going away either, which I gave so. But before I get into that, so there's a few new people here at Fantasy and Frames this year, and so one of the things that I like to do when everybody comes on board is kind of like do like a stat review session of like, this is what this site offers, or that's what that site offers, and this is a cool thing that I look at here, or these are things I look at there to kind of help frame my analysis. And so we were looking at something from PFF, and somebody who kept on popping up at the top of almost every running back metric here was Cam Scatterbo. And I'm like, oh, who's the best? Who's the top 5 in pass block? Cam Scatterbo. Who's the best in the top 5 in yards after contact per attempt? It's Cam Scatterbo. Like, unfreaking believable. Tyrone Tracy is there. But we saw Scatterbo last week. He had his 11 fantasy points last week in half PPR scoring. Are we drinking the Kool-Aid here, Andy, on Scatterbo, or is it just like, is this a money thing or a mirage that we're seeing here? We got Moggs in the chat saying the Scat Pack. That is funny.
It's funny. He's historically, this is my kind of runner. Like I like the Marion Barber types going way back. Show me, just give me somebody who is looking for violence. Who is
looks like Allsop. Remember Mike Allsop? He runs like him, yeah.
Yeah, I love that stuff. I wish, and I felt this way in the preseason with Scatabo, is that he, the payoff to him just trying to detonate people all the time, it's just not going to be the same in the NFL as it was in college, right? And you can't run through people quite as often as you could at the college level. So I don't know how long it lasts. I don't know that he's, I don't know that he's here for a long time. He's here for a good time, right? It's one of those situations.
There you go. Nice.
But I do enjoy the style a great deal. And I think he's the best. I think he's probably the best of the limited options that they have. It is also really easy to see how he and Tyrone Tracy together would just complement each other beautifully. And so I think probably when both players are healthy, and if they get to ever play with their ideal game script, we're going to see both of them on the field quite a bit. I do wish that Scatabo wouldn't try to hit the self-destruct button at the end of every play, but maybe just a handful of plays each game. But again, he's a thrill to watch.
That's funny.
Well, I got a real life situation. Funnily enough, speaking about Dobbins, I don't know who to put Dobbins or Scatabo with the RB2. It's a tough one. Full PPR. I feel like they're very similar. There's not one clear cut, winner there. But gun to your head, what are you doing there?
I feel like Scatabo's maybe a more bankable receiver for you, which maybe matters a little bit in full PPR. We shouldn't love either matchup. I trust Dobbins a little bit more for floor, but Scatabo has that thrill of the unknown thing, and I feel like you can actually throw to him.
Yeah. Let's get into a game next. Before we get out of here this morning, which, by the way, thank you everybody who's been tuning in and dropping comments and questions in the chat. It's been truly a pleasure having you on each and every week. Let's talk about Texans at Jaguars, or sorry, Jonathan, Jaguars. Let me say it properly for you. If
they are basically a British team at this point. So
touche, sir, touche.
That'll happen eventually. I think they'll move to London permanently one day.
You have a fan here. Hit the self-destruct button at the end of every run. My type of running back. Moggs is a huge fan of that comment there. If both quarterbacks have poor games, which is not outside the realm of possibilities here for fantasy managers, who's the more droppable, Andy? Is it CJ or is it T-Law?
This might not be a consensus opinion, but I've really talked myself into wanting to see a full year of Trevor Lawrence and Liam Cohen and what this offense can look like. And I guess one of the things that I'm hanging on to there, and CJ Stroud can run a little bit, but Trevor, maybe Trevor Lawrence has been in the league too long that I shouldn't even think about anything that he did in college, but my God, he was a good runner at the college level, and nobody's allowed him to do it yet in the pros. And Cohen has talked about it in the summer. I don't see any reason that guy can't run for 500 or 600 yards. I don't think it's going to happen this year, at least at the pace that he's on. But some of the best plays that he was responsible for at Clemson were long runs or short runs in traffic. He can do it, and I hope they allow him to. So I'm holding out a little bit more hope for him. I would just like to see Houston's passing game look like a competent, normal passing game, because they haven't gotten enough out of the young receivers. They clearly have a Christian Kirk shaped hole in the offense that they're about to throw Christian Kirk into. So maybe that fixes a lot of things. I hope that it does. If it doesn't get better this week, though, I'm certainly concerned, and I think it probably makes Stroud a little bit more droppable.
Jonathan, what are your thoughts on that? Do you agree with CJ versus T-Law as far as a droppable option here?
Yeah, I think I'm thinking the same thing. Actually, Andy, I was listening to your interview, your chat with JJ Zacharyson on his podcast yesterday, and I can't remember which of the two you was making the point about Cohen's scheme and receivers not kind of running into each other anymore, and they're actually being like proper depth. And
Oh
you know,
yeah, it's my
like
favorite
just
thing about
things like
Jacksonville's
that.
offense is that they
Yeah.
don't arrive at the same point simultaneously anymore, which
Yeah.
had been a tradition. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So there's progression at least there in terms of what the offense can be. So yeah, I think I'm probably a little bit higher on Lawrence there under that scheme.
You know, you mentioned Christian Kirk coming back to this offense, the Christian Kirk hole that's being filled by Christian Kirk. You know, you take that into consideration, you know, going against his old team, coming back from injury. Like, if you're a dynasty manager, and I would assume for redraft that you are kind of have other options, either you prepared for other options for not having Christian Kirk in your roster for the start of the season, so you have, you know, somebody else you could slot in there. But for dynasty, you know, you may not have other depth at that position. Do you feel comfortable, Andy, having Christian Kirk in your starting lineup, given his first week back, going against his old team? You know, or the Stroud concerns really like worrying you, where it's like Nico or bust in the situation at the wide receiver position?
I mean, I think they're going to turn Christian Kirk into something. I don't know that it happens immediately, but I think the matchup here is relatively friendly. So I'm not. Yeah, I mean, I like the league in which I am personally starting Christian Kirk happens to be a dynasty league. It's a deeper format. There's only one. I've got him on a couple of teams. I'm only starting him in one of them, and it's a deeper form. I'm not going to say that I feel great about it, but can Christian Kirk get me to 5 and 60, which is probably all I'm really expecting out of Christian Kirk in any given week? I think he can probably do that right away.
All right. Let's get to our last question and last thing for the Fantasy and Frames pregame show, because we don't want to. We all have like a bazillion lineups to set before the next hour. Michael in the chat, welcome, Michael. Andy, let's throw this one to you. Full PPR, need to Iomenor, Franklin, Kyle Pitts, Tyrone Tracy, Algier. He is leaning Iomenor and Algier. Algier probably because of the game script situation there versus Carolina. Agree, disagree, or who would you insert into this situation for full PPR?
Yeah, I'm personally a little higher on Franklin. I just think the pass volume is a little bit. Well, it seems weird to say because Troy Franklin was not a thing until the last couple of weeks. But I feel like the volume there for Franklin is a little bit more secure. I get it with Algier. It's so. I mean, you don't want to recommend Algier in like a full PPR format generally. He is almost certainly not going to catch a pass. But he has the best odds of any player attached to this question of finding the end zone, I think. So we probably got to plug him in there and just hope that he gets another like 10 or 12 carries and finds the end zone again. All
right. Well, folks, thank you very much for tuning in today. Andy, as always, it is a pleasure having you on. Jonathan, welcome back from across the pond. It is great seeing you again. And Dave, as always, a trooper here, starting at 6 a.m. every Sunday here on the West Coast there. So really appreciate you. And most importantly, everybody here in the chat, everybody who's been watching today's show and watching all of our shows so far this season. We do it for you, and we appreciate you, and we appreciate everything. We appreciate your passion for the NFL and fantasy football. So thank you very much, and we'll be back next week. Nate will hopefully be feeling better. Erika will not have a ton of homework to do. Erika Brown, who I think you met week 1, she messages me this morning, and she's like, I am taking these two classes, and I forget what they're called because hearing their names traumatized me so much, I blocked them out of my head's memory. And I told her, just from what she was telling me she's studying, I told her I wanted to throw up all over my desk. Like, that's how badly it's. So I was like, maybe just focus on homework today. So hopefully her homework sessions are going great, and we'll see her back next week, as well as everybody else here on the Fantasy and Frames Pregame show. So for Andy, for Dave, for Jonathan, I'm Jorge. We'll see you all next week.